Chapter 302. The maid's eyes were wet with tears. Mr. Cheen, I'm sorry I've wronged you. I'll take back all the curses I said just now. Please don't die. Auntie Hong's complexion was dignified. She stared at the screen, a bit of guilt in her eyes. The assistant, of course, she didn't feel any guilt. She only roared in her heart, "Brat, if you dare to die, then you're dead." There seemed to be nothing wrong with these words. Lin Weiwei's complexion changed a bit. A faint light flashed in her eyes. The chief alchemist let out a long breath. He cursed this idiot in his heart. Although he was in the limelight for a moment, if he lost his life, what use was that? Die. Once you die, it will be time for me to start my performance. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. The live broadcast studio was quiet, without the least bit of abnormality. After what seemed like a long time, there was still no movement. Could it be that the pill had no effect at all? This was King awkward. The 4 appraisers had gloomy complexions. They regretted saying too much just now. The only one that hadn't spoken was Grandmaster Su Shao. He swept his eyes over the people around him, a smug smile on his face. As expected, he needed to be in the limelight in the end. He lightly coughed to attract everyone's attention. Then he said, "I didn't think there was anything wrong with the pill, so I didn't stop this black-robed brother from recklessly swallowing it. You brat, you were lucky enough to keep your life today. Hurry up and draw back. Remember to be more careful in your actions in the future. You might not have such luck again." Before his voice fell, a wind suddenly rose up in the live broadcast studio. Above their heads, the ribbons began to flutter. The director angrily turned his head and was about to yell at the bastard who pushed open the door to the live broadcast room at such a crucial and exciting moment. Did he have a death wish? But soon he was stunned. The door to the live broadcast studio was closed. So where did the wind come from? Suddenly, a cry of alarm entered his ears. At first it was low, but in the blink of an eye it became a raging tide that swept outwards. The director was startled. He turned around and saw a scene that he would never forget in his life. On the stage, the black-robed man who hadn't moved, yet suddenly rose up into the air. The space around him rippled like water, causing everything in front of him to blur. It was as if there was an invisible barrier protecting him, not allowing the outside world to probe him. Without any warning, the black-robed man abruptly raised his head. His gaze at this moment seemed to have materialized, pierced through the top of the live broadcast room, straight into the sky. Thus, in the next moment, the incomparably solid roof of the live broadcast room, the roof that even a divine soul cultivator couldn't break after venting his anger, was easily torn apart. Time seemed to suddenly slow down. The tumbling fragments drew clear trajectories and flew in all directions. The crimson light was as straight as a beacon. It descended from the clouds and enveloped the black-robed man. The crimson light was like blood, and the pressure was like a divine prison. Just by looking at it, one would feel a deep fear rise up from the depths of their soul. Who? An invisible force suddenly erupted, forcing everyone on the stage to retreat. Only the black-robed figure bathed in the crimson pillar of light was left in midair, enjoying all the shocked gazes. This is... Everyone was dumbfounded, and shock was written all over their faces. Were they hallucinating? No matter how they looked at it, this seemed like a world phenomenon that would only appear when the divine blood pill was refined. No, even if this was a world phenomenon, it shouldn't have such a terrifying strength. It actually caused their minds to shiver. Grandmaster Su Shao spat out a mouthful of blood, his body shivering. "How could you be so deceptive? I just finished speaking, and you erupted. Couldn't you have been a bit faster?" But at this time, no one had the mind to bother with Grandmaster Su Shao. The only thought in their minds was that the divine blood pill was actually real. Elder Nangong's complexion paled. Regret flooded his heart like a river. If he could turn back time, he absolutely wouldn't have given Chinyu the chance to speak. But now it was already too late. The chief alchemist's eyes widened. His mind buzzed as if he had been struck by a stick. It took him a long time to regain his composure. It's real, hearing the cries of alarm behind him as well as the wild joy in their voices. The chief alchemist felt bitter in his heart, as if he had eaten hundreds of yellow lotuses. Just now he had publicly admitted that the divine blood pill was fake. This was a resounding slap in the face that he couldn't even dodge. And most importantly, he was the chief alchemist. Yet he had made a mistake in appraising a pill. This was simply a disgrace that reached his grandmother's house, directly shaking his authority. Although no one said anything at this time, Jean Chen could feel the gazes behind him becoming a bit more strange and questioning. At this time, bathed in the blood-red pillar of light, he no longer had any thoughts of paying attention to what was happening outside. His entire mind was immersed in the descending world laws. Now he truly understood just how formidable the divine blood pill was. At this time he seemed to have become the incarnation of a spiritual god. With a wave of his hand he could erupt with a monstrous strength that could destroy all things in the world. The world in front of him was filled with unprecedented colors. Countless comprehensions surged into his heart like a tide. It was like the world had become transparent in his eyes, as if there were no secrets left. Unless he personally experienced this feeling, it was hard to understand. He was well aware of just what sort of good fortune he was experiencing at this time. He quickly remembered everything he saw. Even if he couldn't understand it, he still memorized it and branded it into his soul. Unfortunately, this feeling of the world being transparent and having no secrets only lasted for a short period of time. Then his line of sight blurred. His intuition told him that it wasn't that the divine blood pill wasn't strong enough, but that his cultivation was too weak. He simply didn't have the qualifications to perceive the mysteries of the world. He sighed inwardly, a helpless feeling in his heart. He feared that over half of the divine blood pill's strength would be wasted. Luckily, he had earned this to begin with. If anyone were to feel heartache, it should be the cultivators of Philosophy Watch, not him. Although there was no way for him to continue perceiving the rules of the world, he could still make good use of the remaining time. Shua! Qinyu opened his eyes. Within his indifferent expression was a supreme dignity like that of a god. As he opened his eyes, a loud roar resounded in everyone's ears. A boundless pressure submerged them like a tide, causing awe to instinctively rise from the depths of their souls. Within the blood-red pillar of light, a phantom appeared. This was an incomparably massive ancient tree, its crown blocking out the skies. Just looking at it made one shiver. Qinyu lifted a hand. The phantom of the ancient tree swayed with it. Its branches rustled as trillions of beams of light sprinkled down. God said, "Let there be light." Above his head, a giant hole had been opened in the live broadcast studio. Endless light sprinkled down. It was brilliant, but it was warm and transparent, carrying with it a vibrant vitality that flowed like water. God said, "Let there be rain." Rumble, rumble. Without warning, the skies outside turned pitch black. Dark clouds gushed out from nothingness, and a torrential downpour of rain fell. God said, "Let there be life." The ground split open, and branches broke through the earth. They rapidly grew, spitting out dark green leaves. In several breaths of time, giant vines had crawled over the live broadcast studio, making it seem as if one were in a wild jungle. God said, "Let there be death." Those giant vines that were brimming with life seemed to experience the flow of time accelerate. The green leaves rapidly withered until they finally dried up, turning into powder that piled up on the ground. Qin Yu's voice became increasingly dignified and majestic, as if it contained an unquestionable will. He spat out his final words. God said, "Let there be samsara." Thus, the powder on the ground wriggled, constantly contracting and condensing until it finally turned into seeds. The ancient tree phantom trembled and slowly vanished from sight, and with it, that crimson pillar of light that came from the highest heavens also vanished. Chin, you slowly landed on the ground. After several breaths of silence, he slowly said, "Now about this divine blood pill. Does anyone have any objections?" The live broadcast studio fell deathly silent. Outside of the screens, all the cultivators that had witnessed this were also left dumbfounded. No one expected that such a miraculous scene would occur in front of them. This reversal had come too quickly and too violently. Their hearts nearly couldn't withstand it. After an unknown period of time, some people finally regained their composure. Surging emotions surged in their hearts, causing them to rush onto the network to vent their feelings. Heavens, is that the power of the divine blood pill? To control the rules with a single thought. Tyrannical and cool. So cool that it explodes the heavens. The divine blood pill is actually real. I can't believe it. That's 5 appraisal grandmasters. I feel pain in their faces. I think the 5 grandmasters are fine, but the one who feels the most heartache is the chief alchemist. He just admitted that it was fake, and then he was immediately counterattacked. If it were me, I would probably have thoughts of suicide from shame and anger. What a bullshit chief alchemist. If it weren't for that black-robed little brother just now, Yurn would have already been finished. What kind of joke is this? He doesn't even know what the divine blood pill is. Hurry up and scram out of here. Don't stand there and embarrass yourself. These were mostly noobs that had only seen the surface and were already venting their frustrations. The truly knowledgeable cultivators all understood just what Chin Yu's miraculous performance in the live broadcast studio meant. In a luxurious courtyard, an old man in a study had a crazed look on his face. Bastard, bastard. What a reckless waste of a heavenly treasure. The divine blood pill, that is the divine blood pill. When the power of the rules was added to his body, he didn't wholeheartedly perceive it and instead manipulated the rules to play these useless tricks. You little black-robed bastard. You really angered this old man to death. He looked up, 2 streams of speechless tears running down his cheeks. If this divine blood pill had been given to him, then perhaps he might have had a chance to make a breakthrough. The surface of the tranquil lake was like a mirror, clearly reflecting the surrounding mountains. It was like 2 different worlds were separated by the water surface. The scenery was incomparably beautiful. Suddenly, this tranquility was completely broken. Great waves tumbled about, accompanied by a faint roar. You damned brat, such a divine treasure like the divine blood pill was actually wasted by you. You should be struck by lightning. If you had given it to me, then this old dragon might have been able to find a chance to transform. Ah, you really angered me to death. Chapter 303. It was unknown which great master gnashed his teeth for a long time. Finally, he couldn't bear it any longer and logged onto his Weibo account to post an angry article. After a short period of preparation, it instantly blew up the entire network. So the divine blood pill could really feel the rules. To a high-level cultivator, this was a monstrous good fortune. Countless noobs finally understood just what sort of astonishing price Chin Yu had to pay for his dazzling performance. How hateful! Black-robed brat, you don't want it. Give this lucky chance to me. Big brother, you can't play with me like this. Big brother, I give up, I give up. Let the heavens strike me with lightning. I must let the heavens strike me with lightning. But there were also some people who felt that they could see something else from this matter. Thus, a well-known figure posted a different opinion. The blog post was long, but the general meaning was as follows. This storm was originally to verify whether the divine blood pill was real or fake. The black-robed little brother gave up his own good fortune to clearly display the power of rules in front of everyone. This is to let us know that the divine blood pill is real and that the inn's reputation cannot be destroyed by anyone. I admire this little brother and am willing to be friends with him. If you are willing, please send me a private message and I will treat you to a meal. This opinion instantly set off a prairie fire. When Chin Yu wanted to test the pill himself, many people had already developed feelings of admiration towards him. now that they knew that Qin Yu had given up such a heaven-shaking good fortune in order to prove that the divine blood pill was real. The respect and admiration in everyone's hearts broke through the heavens. Black-robed little brother is truly the most sincere and righteous person I have ever seen in my life. Black-robed big brother, let alone anything else, just your moral character is enough to make me fall in love with you. As long as you are willing, we can collect our marriage certificate today. Woo, woo, woo. There is actually such a cute person in this world. Our group from top to bottom sincerely welcomes black-robed little brother to join us. We will give you any treatment you want. Big brother black-robed is such a loyal person. How could he abandon the inn and join someone else? I have decided that from today onwards, I will be Big Brother Black-Robe's fan. If anyone dares to ruin my big brother's reputation in the future, don't blame me for being rude. I want to join. I am also Big Brother Black-Robe's fan. It was unknown who created a Black Robe fan camp account, but in a short period of time, it attracted hundreds of thousands of fans. Moreover, as time passed, the number of fans continued to increase at an astonishing rate. He had even set up a fan club, and it was said that most of them were beautiful and cute girls. Qin, you certainly didn't know that he had already become a male god in the hearts of countless young girls. After completing the appraisal of the divine blood pill, he didn't plan on staying any longer. Once the matter was done, he would brush his shoulders and leave, hiding his achievements and fame, of course. Qin Yu wouldn't admit that this was because Philosophy Watch was in a thunderous rage and the Lord Chief Alchemist's complexion was so ugly it looked as if he had swallowed 1,000 flies. If these people became enraged out of shame and tried to attack him, then with his nascent soul cultivation, he would definitely suffer a loss. Now that things had been settled, running away was the smartest choice. When he pushed the door open, Elder Nangong spat out a mouthful of blood and roared hoarsely, "Who the hell are you?" Qin Yu paused, not turning his head. "Ning Qin." He strode out the door and disappeared from the live broadcast. His back view was captured, and it caused countless female cultivators to scream. "My big brother Ning Qin is just too handsome. What should I do? What should I do? I can't breathe." Stepping into the teleportation array, the program team cultivators did not dare to make a single sound as they obediently activated the teleportation array. Hum! A light flashed and Qin Yu's figure vanished from sight. The tumultuous matter of the pill commission had already passed for half a month, but people were still talking about it with gusto. This was because the process had been full of twists and turns, and the ending had been reversed. It was simply too much of a topic. In this matter, almost everyone involved, whether it was Philosophy Watch that controlled everything behind the scenes, then that passively endured it, or the 5 industry veterans that participated in the appraisal, all of them had been reduced to a laughingstock. The only ones who truly obtained benefits were Ning Qin and that mysterious Grandmaster 19 who had yet to reveal himself. In particular, the latter's mysteriousness made one feel increasingly unfathomable. What nonsense! He had even refined the divine blood pill, slapping the faces of so many alchemy grandmasters in a single breath. One didn't need to be a genius to know that his alchemy skills had reached the limit, because he had always been mysterious in addition to the silence, as well as the unfathomable image of Grandmaster 19. Although many people paid attention to him, very few people dared to mention him. Thus, the only one left was Ning Qin, who attracted the majority of attention. In this half a month, a fake Ning Qin had appeared on Weibo. Unfortunately, he only managed to pretend to be Ning Qin for 3 days before his true identity was exposed by powerful fans. Even the infamous operations team behind him was exposed, and he became a street rat that everyone wanted to beat up. Weibo also issued a statement regarding this matter, saying that it was the result of a manager within the group abusing his power for personal gain and that he had already been dismissed. The fake Ning Qin had appeared, but the real Ning Qin was still in a hidden state. Some powerful fans used various methods to search for him, but they weren't able to find anyone named Ning Qin within. After countless debates, The fans came to a consensus that the name Ning Qin was fake. The black-robed big brother just didn't want his true identity to be exposed. Thinking about it, this made sense. Ning Qin had slapped the chief alchemist's face and also formed an irreconcilable death grudge with Philosophy Watch. Once his identity was exposed, his days would likely be miserable. Fans began to express their respect for Ning Qin's choice on Weibo and no longer searched for his identity. They also called for more people to help him keep his secret. However, none of these comments were able to truly affect the person involved. This was because after the appraisal of the divine blood pill, Qin returned to the beast hunting battalion and went into seclusion, ignoring the outside world. Because his cultivation was lacking, most of the divine blood pill's strength had been wasted. But the remaining few comprehensions were still greatly beneficial to Qin. Qin opened his eyes and let out a light breath. A smile lifted the corners of his lips. When the heaven and earth spiritual strength surged forth, he had inadvertently seized the heaven-defying good fortune needed to become a beast king. His mortal body and magic power had both risen to an astonishing degree. But in the end, the spirit spring didn't belong to a cultivator. Its strength would cause one's foundation to become unstable, and a temporary rise in strength might not necessarily be a good thing when compared to the difficulty of making future breakthroughs. He had perceived a trace of the world laws this time. Although it was unknown what other benefits there were, at the very least he had thoroughly consolidated the unstable foundation within his body. Just this point alone could be called an amazing harvest. Qin was satisfied. Moreover, there were even more feelings in his mind that he temporarily couldn't experience. As his cultivation rose, these feelings would constantly transform into a formidable strength. Not long after he left seclusion, Auntie Hong came to visit him. There was a helpless look in her eyes. "Mr. Qin, it seems you're having a good time in seclusion, but you have no idea how busy we've been recently." Qin smiled. "Being a bit busy is always better than being taken down by others, right?" Auntie Hong covered her mouth and smiled. "I will forever remember Mr. Qin's graciousness. If there is anything you need, please feel free to ask." When these words came from the mouth of a beautiful and alluring woman, it was hard not to have random thoughts. There Mr. Qin had cultivated for so long and had experienced many trials and tribulations. He had even reached the peak of the world in the land of exiles, but he was still a young boy. As he looked at Auntie Hong's smiling appearance, he couldn't help but reveal an awkward expression. As this expression fell into Auntie Hong's eyes, she felt as if she had discovered a new continent. Her eyes brightened. "Mr. Qin, could it be that you—" She had an incomparably surprised expression. Qin coughed and used the great cosmos shift. "How is the current situation?" "Of course it's excellent. This time, Philosophy Watch has suffered a double loss. They have spent a great deal of effort to help the inn with a massive wave of publicity. In particular, after today's weather appraisal program, the inn's business has increased by 30%. This is all Mr. Qin's credit. The miss asked me to convey her thanks to you." Auntie Hong didn't expose him, but from her faint smile, it was clear that she had already determined something. While she was happy for the miss, she was also a bit embarrassed. After all, the miss's situation was so special. She feared there was no way to resolve it in a short period of time. If she really wanted to get closer to Qin, it wouldn't be easy. Qin pretended not to see the beautiful woman's teasing. He earnestly nodded. "That's good." For Auntie Hong to be able to reach her current position, she naturally understood what was appropriate. She simply let go of this matter. "Mr. Qin, you have been in seclusion for half a month, and we have already received over a dozen refining commissions. All of them want Grandmaster 19 to personally make them, and the rewards are extremely generous. As for the specifics, I have already organized them. They are all in this jade slip. You can freely choose from them." She paused for a moment, a solemn expression on her face. "Now, I would like to represent the miss and reward Mr. Cheen for his help to the inn. Mr. Cheen, you can choose any one of the treasures on this list as your reward this time." As she spoke, she took out several bamboo slips and placed them on the table. Cheen Yu took them and didn't politely decline them. With what he had done for the inn, it was natural for him to be rewarded. On the bamboo slips, there were a total of 10 treasures. Cheen Yu quickly looked through them. His eyes flashed. "God blood? I never thought that the inn would have 2 of them." Auntie Hong frowned. She thought for a moment and said, "Mr. Cheen, perhaps God blood isn't a good choice for you?" "Why?" "Although Mr. Cheen has already refined the divine blood pill, the success rate is far too low. If you try again, you might not succeed. And if you cannot refine the divine blood pill, then you cannot use the God blood. It would be better to exchange it for some treasures that you can use right now." Auntie Hong earnestly said, "Moreover, I believe that as long as Mr. Cheen can refine several more difficult pills, there will definitely be people who will bring God blood and ask you to make a move." In truth, these last words were a bit too much. The meaning behind them was that Cheen Yu would soon have another chance to obtain God blood from somewhere else. As for how he would obtain it, just think about it and you'll know. Chapter 304. Auntie Hong was startled. From Cheen Yu's straightforward expression, she could tell that he hadn't considered exchanging for the God blood from the very start. The reason he mentioned it was only to probe her. It was clear that he was satisfied with her answer. This bow was to thank her for what happened in the past, and also to express his apology for probing her today. Looking at her complexion, he knew she had already thought of this. Cheen Yu smiled. "The world is dangerous, so I have no choice but to be cautious. I hope Auntie Hong doesn't take offense." He began to trust this woman a little. At least up until now, she had always been thinking about him. Auntie Hong shook her head. "I can understand. After all, we don't have too deep of a friendship. But the miss cares a great deal about you. You must understand this." Cheen Yu didn't think too much about it. He nodded. Auntie Hong smiled. "The Nirvana lotus seeds will be delivered today. Then my matter will be finished, and to be more precise, there is something else. May I ask if Mr. Cheen is 100 years old? With success in cultivation, one could live a long life. Moreover, under the influence of their cultivation, a cultivator aged extremely slowly. In addition to some youthful treasures, it was difficult to accurately judge a cultivator's age from their appearance." Cheen Yu revealed a puzzled expression. "I'm not 100 years old." Auntie Hong was overjoyed. "I think so too. Then this matter can be considered chance." The truth was that the entire matter could be summed up in a single sentence. Within the borders of the South Shine Nation, there was a youth alchemy competition held once every 30 years. If one won, there would be a reward. Of course, the condition to participate was that one couldn't be over 100 years old. Mr. Cheen, with your alchemy skills, there is a high chance you can seize first place. Disregarding the rewards, this is an excellent chance to become famous." Auntie Hong said in a supportive manner. Cheen Yu had no intention of participating. He didn't want to show off too much, especially since he only had a nascent soul cultivation. If he wasn't careful, he might lose his life. It was better to work hard to increase his cultivation. As for the rewards, with the little blue lamp in hand, Cheen Yu felt that he had the potential to be rich. As long as he could preserve his life, there would be bread and milk. Auntie Hong revealed a regretful expression. "If that's the case, then forget it. It's just that I heard that in the prizes this time there is an incomplete spirit of an ancient treasure furnace. If I can refine it, the power of my pill furnace will rise by leaps and bounds." Cheen Yu's thoughts stirred. This was because at this moment he could feel strange fluctuations coming from the fleeting flame furnace in his storage ring. His complexion didn't change. He casually said, "I wonder what sort of treasure furnace it is." Auntie Hong didn't think too much about it. "I heard that it was fished up from the deep sea. There are images of the sun, moon, and stars circulating around it. This sort of performance is quite extraordinary. Oh, that's right, it is said that when this furnace was born, yin and yang reversed, and the sun and moon shined together. Within the storage ring, the fleeting flame furnace began to hum. An urgent will was directly transmitted to Chinyu, as if it were crying out, "I want it! I want it! I want it!" This was the first time that the fleeting flame furnace had revealed such intense emotions. Chinyu hesitated for a moment. He asked in his heart, "Is it really that important to you?" After getting an affirmative answer, he was silent for a while, took a deep breath, and made a decision. To an alchemist, a pill furnace was their best and most important companion. The fleeting flame furnace had been extremely helpful to Chinyu. Ever since he stepped onto the path of alchemy, it had followed him. Now that it had made a request, Chinyu couldn't refuse it no matter what. "Auntie Hong, this time, I will participate in this match." Auntie Hong's eyes widened. Even as she left, her mind was still confused. "Chin, you didn't seem like the type of person who would change his mind on a whim. He had just said he wouldn't go. So why did he suddenly want to go? Whatever, it was possible that outstanding people had strange minds. In the end, this matter was beneficial to the inn. If he wanted to go, that would be for the best. The Nirvanic lotus seed was delivered to Chinyu on the same day. Along with it was a copy of the rules of the South Shine Nation's Youth Alchemy Competition. From Chinyu's perspective, the contents were similar. The only difference was that there was a rule that required the participants to pass through the wilderness and arrive at the venue of the competition. This was a bit unexpected. Chinyu thought about it for a moment and roughly guessed the meaning behind this rule. It was likely that the organizers of the competition wanted to eliminate those that came to make up the numbers and prevent the participants from being too mixed up. After all, although alchemy was a technical activity, it also had extremely high requirements for a cultivator. If one's cultivation was too poor, it was impossible to become a qualified alchemist. Chinyu rubbed his nose. Although he appeared calm on the surface, he was actually a bit nervous. Although his nascent soul cultivation wasn't weak, it wasn't anything at all in the land of divinity and demons. If he couldn't even pass this hurdle, how could he talk about winning the championship? It would be best if he didn't die of laughter from others. This sort of thing absolutely could not be allowed. Luckily, there were still 3 months until the competition began. That was more than enough time for him to increase his strength by another level. Chinyu expressed to Auntie Hong that he would go into seclusion for a period of time in order to focus on the competition. Indeed, within the inn his status wasn't low. Auntie Hong asked him to wait a moment. After asking for instructions, she personally led Chinyu into the inn's transmission array. The transmission was fast. It was clear that the distance wasn't too far. Auntie Hong brought Chinyu to a majestic building complex that was white in color. "What is this place?" Auntie Hong revealed an envious look. "This is a Tao arena of the South Shine Nation. It is a place that specializes in cultivation. Cultivating here for a day is equal to cultivating for 10 days outside. Mr. Chin will soon learn the specifics." As she spoke, a Tao arena cultivator in loose white robes came out to greet her. Auntie Hong briefly spoke with him and then swiped her card to complete the payment. Although he didn't know how many spirit stones he had spent, he could see the distressed expression on Auntie Hong's face. It was definitely not a small number. "All right, I have already paid the Tao Arena's fees for 3 months. Mr. Chin can cultivate here in peace. If there is anything you need, please feel free to contact me at any time." "Oh, that's right. The Tao Arena will keep all information about our guests confidential and will automatically destroy it after they leave. There has never been a case of information being leaked. Mr. Chin does not need to worry about anything when cultivating." Chinyu nodded. Auntie Hong didn't stay for long. After leaving some instructions, she bid her farewells and left. The Tao Arena cultivator lightly said, "Guest, please follow me." They entered the elevator and descended all the way down. Looking at the sign, they stopped at the 20th level underground. The Tao Arena cultivator brought Chinyu to a white door. This is the guest's exclusive cultivation area. Without the guest's permission, no one can come here. I wish you a happy cultivation." As the Tao Arena cultivator spoke, he handed a white card to Qinyu and cupped his hands across his chest before leaving. When he rode the elevator just now, Qinyu had seen the Tao Arena cultivator use it. He imitated the white door in front of him and swiped his card across the black crystal. The door opened with it. As he stepped in, Qinyu's complexion changed, revealing a look of shock. There was no difference between the outside world and the outside world, but the density of heaven and earth's spiritual strength in the air had risen by 10 times. The rich heaven and earth spiritual strength made it seem as if every breath he took could make his magic power stronger. Of course, this was only an illusion, but it was enough to show just how amazing the cultivation environment here was. No wonder Anihong said that cultivating here for a day was equal to cultivating for 10 days outside. It was just that. Qin Yu was silent for a long time. He bitterly smiled. For him to cultivate to this day, he had never relied on heaven and earth's spiritual strength. To others, such a good cultivation environment was an unimaginable good fortune. But to Qin Yu, it was simply a waste. However, this was clearly the inn's good intentions. It was impossible for Qin Yu to tell them that his talent was horrifyingly bad and that he wasn't worthy of such a good place, so they should hurry up and return it. He shook his head, suppressing the helplessness in his heart. Qin Yu looked around. The door didn't seem large, but the space inside wasn't small at all. There were also many strange things that Qin Yu didn't know what they were. Perhaps sensing the doubt on Zhang Xian's face, there was a flash of light, and a corporeal image of a young lady appeared before him. She had the appearance of a 17 to 18-year-old girl. She had a light expression and said, "Welcome guests to the Tao Arena. I am your guide. If you are already familiar with how to use all the equipment, please press 1. Otherwise, please press 2. A number key appeared in front of Qin Yu. Of course, he didn't say anything. He directly pressed 2. The guide nodded. "Guest, how do you do? Since this is your first time visiting the Tao Arena, I will give you a detailed introduction to the supporting facilities of the 20th floor, as well as how to use them. Please follow me." An hour later, the guide vanished into thin air. By now, Qin Yu knew the names of all the equipment in this space, as well as their uses. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. The cultivators of the land of divinity and demons really knew how to play around. His previous idea that there was only 10 times the heaven and earth spiritual strength here was even more wrong. For instance, the pitch-black stone floor in front of him was called the gravity chamber. It could change the gravity of the earth and increase the burden on a cultivator, tempering one's magic power and increasing the strength of the mortal body. It also had a considerable effect on increasing one's speed. There was also the floating area with countless white, translucent spheres. This was called the Divine Sense Kingdom. Its function was the same as its name. It could help a cultivator improve their control over their divine sense and increase the strength of their divine sense. There was also the battle room. According to a cultivator's aura, it could create an opponent that was exactly the same as the cultivator. Only by defeating themselves could they truly understand their own flaws. There were many more. But at this time, what interested Qin Yu the most was the common-looking, silver-white column in front of him. It was around 1/2 meter in diameter and 3 meters tall. Its surface was soft to the touch, even giving off an extremely delicate feeling. Its name was quite lofty. It was called the All-Type Precise Strength Assessment Tester. In simpler terms, it could test the cultivation level of the person who attacked. Qin Yu's eyes brightened. Although there weren't any differences in cultivation levels in the land of divinity and demons, the specific division of strength was different. In addition, after he seized the king beast's spirit spring in the wilderness, he wasn't sure exactly what his cultivation was. He might as well give it a try and see just what level he belonged to in the land of divinity and demons. Standing in front of the column, Qin Yu shouted out loud and punched out. Bang! Chapter 305. the land of divinity and demons had an extremely detailed division of cultivators' cultivation. For instance, a nascent soul cultivator could erupt with the strength of 1,000 horses. Of course, these horses weren't ordinary horses, but black iron wildebeests that had the bloodline of monster beasts. Each one had the strength of 100,000 caddies, a combat strength of 296 horses, according to the strength of 1,000 horses, could barely be considered a third-level nascent soul. However, what the hell was that comment at the end? Qin Yu was already speechless. He shook his head, a sharp light flashing in his eyes. In this punch, he had only erupted with the strength of a nascent soul. He never thought that after absorbing the power of the wild spirit spring, his cultivation would nearly reach the third level of nascent soul. But in his Dantian Sea, there was more than one nascent soul. Moreover, with the 5 elements as one, it wasn't as simple as the strength of 5 nascent souls added together. Bang! Qin Yu punched out a second time. The 5 element nascent souls lit up at the same time, erupting with endless divine light. They linked together and circulated, forming a dazzling halo of light. Hum! The metal column emitted an even louder cry. Light wildly circulated on the column of light. Combat strength, 3,480 horses. The strength of 3 flood dragons. A slightly famous bandit king, able to obtain a certain degree of fame in a place with few people. A nascent soul's highest combat strength was 1,000 horses. Surpassing that was the same as reaching the divine soul level of combat strength. But this was clearly the weakest divine soul combat strength. This was because even the most ordinary divine soul cultivator could have the strength of 10 flood dragons once they stabilized their boundary. Qin Yu's lips curled up in a smile. Although he was much weaker than the weakest divine soul cultivator, he had still stepped into the divine soul realm and could easily roll over any nascent soul. Moreover, he still had cards in his hand that he hadn't used yet. His thoughts stirred. 5-colored divine light flowed between his fingers, forming the 5-element swords. 5-element sword array. Bang! The metal column shined with a light as rich as the sun. The number that hadn't yet dissipated began to crazily rise. Combat strength, 13,976 horses. The strength of 13 flood dragons. Outstanding bandit king. This comment was short and concise. Qin Yu's lips twitched. The 5-element sword array was the strongest strength he could erupt with. It was enough to compare to an early divine soul cultivator, yet he still couldn't escape the trap of a bandit. The fellow who designed this cultivation detector was truly arrogant. However, his trump card was not finished yet. Qin Yu took a deep breath. His bones crackled and popped. His heart wildly beat, pushing his blood to roar as the strength of the demon body erupted. Bang! Combat power. 55,904 horses. 55 flood dragon strength. Qin Yu's eyes brightened. He never thought that after the demon body erupted, it would cause his combat strength to double. However, when he saw the comments at the end, his vision darkened and he almost vomited blood. Leader of the Mountain Bandits Alliance, barely passable, can enter the city without fear of being killed. Mountain Bandit. Mountain Bandit. You're the Mountain Bandit. Your whole family are mountain bandits. Qin Yu took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He also felt it was a bit strange. Why was it that he couldn't restrain his emotions when facing these comments? Whatever, for better or worse, he could be considered a divine soul-level master. There was no need to be angry with someone he had never met before. 55 flood dragon power. Compared to when he first arrived at the land of divinity and demons, Qin Yu was over 10 times stronger. This was truly worthy of being called a holy land for cultivation. Although obtaining the power of the spirit spring was a stroke of luck, the heaven-defying little blue lamp still hadn't displayed its might. As for his future road of cultivation, Qin Yu was filled with confidence. He would definitely be able to break into the divine soul realm in the shortest period of time possible. It was true that Qin Yu's combat strength of 55 flood dragons was more formidable than an early divine soul cultivator. But this was only a comparison of pure combat strength. He hadn't grasped the various methods of a divine soul cultivator yet. For example, teleportation. After the little blue lamp entered the land of divinity and demons, it had fallen into a deep silence. Unless Qin Yu activated it, it wouldn't release the least bit of its aura. The ability to teleport Qin Yu naturally disappeared. As if it were avoiding something, Qin Yu would never forget that the world was filled with malice towards him. If he wasn't careful, then, as one with the little blue lamp, there was a chance he would suffer a calamity. Thus, in order to be cautious, it was only after he broke through to divine soul and grasped teleportation that his escaping ability and combatability would rise. Only then would he have the strength to protect himself and step onto the road to the immortal sect. Qin Yu decided that he wouldn't delay any longer and would immediately begin cultivating. But before that, he still had 2 matters to attend to. He flicked his sleeves. With a flash of light, 2 jade boxes appeared in front of him. Qin Yu's eyes gradually brightened. Of the 2 jade boxes, one was pitch black and one was pure white. He opened the black jade box, and what appeared in front of him was a crystal green lotus flower. This was the reward that Philosophy Watch had given him when they asked him to refine pills, the jade crystal lotus. Qin Yu had already learned how to refine treasures that could increase one's talent. Without hesitation, he pointed a finger at the jade crystal lotus. This object fused with Qin Yu's aura and flew up on its own. It circled above his head, emitting faint traces of light that fell onto his body like a drizzle before vanishing from sight. And during this process, the jade crystal lotus constantly turned illusory. Finally, it vanished like a shadow without a single trace left behind. It was like this heaven-defying treasure that could change a cultivator's talent had suffered the punishment of the heavens and was completely erased from the world. Qin Yu opened his eyes, confusion flashing in them. He didn't feel as if anything had changed. He touched his body and didn't find any impurities. His heart tightened. Could it be that the jade crystal lotus was useless to him? He took out a pill and quickly swallowed it. He began to refine it with all his strength. A moment later, he opened his eyes. Although he had a helpless expression, he actually relaxed inwardly. It was useful. He could feel that when he absorbed the same pill, the magic power he obtained was a little bit more than before, but it was only a tiny bit. If he didn't look carefully, he wouldn't have noticed it. Wasn't it said that although the jade crystal lotus was a low-level treasure, it could still clearly increase a cultivator's talent? On the handphone forums, many cultivators had confirmed this point in their replies. But why? Qin Yu was silent for a long time. He took out his handphone and searched through it. After spending a great deal of effort, he finally found the reason. For those with extremely poor talent and low potential, if they used a treasure that could increase their talent, the effects would be greatly reduced. Extremely poor talent, low potential. Qin Yu's lips twitched. He clenched his teeth and opened the white jade box. Inside was a black lotus seed. The surface of the lotus seed was covered with tiny runes that sparkled with a mystical light. Nirvana lotus seed. This object was not something that the jade crystal lotus could compare with. Even amongst the many treasures that could increase one's talent, it was considered a medium-level treasure and was extremely valuable. Otherwise, how could the Yin have the face to give it to Qin Yu as a thank-you gift? The process of refining the Nirvana lotus seed wasn't any different from that of the jade crystal lotus. The only difference was that it took much longer and the light that drizzled down became much richer. The Nirvana lotus seed vanished. Qin Yu took out a pill. A moment later, he opened his eyes, a dazed expression on his face. He had finally determined that he was that kind of person. To Qin Yu, this was no small blow. He admitted that his talent was poor, so he wholeheartedly wanted to increase it. But you actually blocked most of this road for him. Aren't you being too much of a bully? For example, if others needed 2 Nirvana lotus seeds to increase their talent by 1 level, Chinyu would need at least 10 or even more. After a long time, he reluctantly accepted this reality. He comforted himself by saying that he still had the little blue lamp. He sourly thought that if he had a chance in the future, he would obtain a batch of heavenly materials that could increase one's talent and cultivate them himself. At that time, he would eat them and throw them away, cooking soup for the first meal and braising them for the next. Of course, this was nothing but the ravings of an idiot. Every heavenly material that could increase one's talent was naturally formed by the world and was a product that existed outside of the rules. It was impossible for humans to cultivate them. It was because of this that they were rare and incomparably precious. After a short rest, Chinyu turned his grief and indignation into strength. He began to cultivate with all his might. The pills he had accumulated in his storage ring were swallowed into his stomach, turning into billowing medicinal efficacy that erupted. Sun Moon Pill, Overwhelming Pill, Mountain River Pill, Essence Chun Pill, Soul Recovery Pill, Tiger Subduing Pill, Dragon Essence Pill, Magic Power Enhancing, Soul Strengthening, Mortal Body Strengthening. All sorts of pills were freely available. At this time, Chinyu could be called extremely wealthy. Even in the land of divinity and demons, some core disciples of large sects wouldn't be able to cultivate so extravagantly when they were at the nascent soul realm. Occasionally, when he was resting, Chinyu would open his furnace and refine pills. Currently, the materials for refining nascent soul realm pills in his storage ring had nearly piled up into a small mountain. As for the spirit stones, he needed to purchase them. That was naturally the reward money he had won when he had a sudden inspiration. An investment of 230,000 spirit stones had turned into nearly 6 million in just a few days. This was a heaven-defying return. Even though Chinyu had always been wealthy, he was still shaken by this amount of wealth. From time to time, he would laugh foolishly for 2 days before regaining his composure. With these spirit stones in addition to Chinyu's current status in the inn, he was able to purchase materials at a discount. A mountain of materials only cost 1,000,000 spirit stones. Chinyu was open-minded. Spirit stones were good things, but the most important thing for a cultivator was their own cultivation. When it was time to spend them, he naturally couldn't feel heartache. Refining pills, swallowing pills, this was a cycle. After a long time, his body and mind would eventually grow tired. Thus, Chinyu began to use the other equipment in the Tao arena to relax. But soon, he discovered that these equipment weren't just decorations. They soon became a regular activity that he had to do every 2 days. For instance, at this time, Chinyu was dripping sweat in the gravitational space. Every muscle in his body was stretched taut, making him look like the most perfect sculpture. Between his flesh and blood, traces of numbness spread out. But he could feel that every inch of his flesh and blood was constantly strengthening at an astonishing speed. An hour later, Chinyu gasped for breath. He walked out of the gravitational space and sat cross-legged outside the divine sense kingdom. With a thought, his divine sense broke out from his body. Walala! The translucent spheres that covered nearly the entire space began to shake as if they had been activated. Chinyu was calm at first, but as time passed, his body would shake from time to time. He would grimace in pain as if he were suffering from epilepsy. This was the terrifying aspect of the divine sense kingdom. Those translucent spheres would begin to shake as soon as one's divine sense entered. If one couldn't dodge in time and their divine sense was struck, they would suffer a horrifying pain that seeped into their marrow. Moreover, what was most abnormal was that the speed at which these spheres shook would constantly increase as time passed. Luckily, this sort of pain was only on the simple level of consciousness and didn't cause any real damage to a cultivator's divine sense. Otherwise, Chinyu would have run as far away as he could. After experiencing the double torment of his body and divine sense, Chinyu was finally exhausted. He swallowed down a pill and closed his eyes to refine it. In this sort of exhausted state, the mortal body would develop an intense desire for external energy. Whether it was refining speed or the amount of energy absorbed, it would all increase. This could be considered a small comfort in Qin Yu's suffering. 2 hours later, Qin Yu's eyes flashed open. A divine light flashed within them, and he stood up, stepping into the combat room. Hum! A burst of light fell down, covering Qin Yu within. Shwa! In an environment similar to an arena, Qin Yu's figure appeared. Then, across from him, a person that looked exactly the same as him appeared. Their gazes collided. There was no need for any words to be exchanged. They began to brutally slaughter each other. Qin Yu knew that he was real, but the puppet that he had created also seemed to think that he was real. Its fierce and loathing attitude was displayed to the fullest. Fighting himself was already depressing enough, but he also had to endure the other party's vicious eyes that said, "Where did you come from, boy? How dare you pretend to be me?" Here, he had to give the Tao Arena a thumbs up. He really had no idea how they managed to do this. They could actually simulate a puppet to be exactly the same as the main body. Everything that Qin Yu knew, he also knew. In this sort of battle where everyone knew their trump cards and their strengths were exactly the same, it was simply too refreshing. Chapter 306. Qin Yu bitterly smiled. He had tried to perish together again. It seemed that wanting to defeat him would be an incomparably difficult matter. He limply walked out of the combat room. He braced himself, took out a pill, swallowed it, and continued to cultivate. Time was more chaste than anything else in the world. It wouldn't be twisted or changed by external forces. When Qin Yu finished refining the pills in his body and was preparing to continue, the guide's figure suddenly appeared. The guide lightly said, "Guest, there are still 4 hours left until your time at the Tao Arena. Please pack up your belongings. We welcome you to come again." This sort of dull and boring, lonely cultivation, if it were anyone else, they might feel joy as if they had been set free. But Qin Yu's first thought was, "Are you kidding me? How long has it been? 3 months have passed." He indignantly took out his handphone. He was thankful for the super endurance of cultivation technology. The phone hadn't been turned off yet, allowing Qin Yu to see the marked calendar. It was actually real. After a brief daze, Qin Yu swept his eyes around, a look of reluctance on his face. He secretly decided that if he had a chance in the future, he would definitely come back to the Tao Arena. This place was simply too wonderful. With only 4 hours left, there was no meaning in cultivating any longer. Qin Yu stood up and walked in front of the combat strength measuring device. He took a deep breath and punched out. Hum! Light wove together to form words. Combat strength, 431 horses. Nascent soul 4th level. In 3 months, a massive amount of pills had accumulated, forcefully raising Qin Yu from the 3rd level to the middle 4th level. This cultivation speed, even in the land of divinity and demons, could be considered above average. That's right, above average. Otherwise, geniuses would be as common as dogs in the land of divinity and demons. If it were a true proud son of heaven cultivator who had the same cultivation resources as Qin Yu, they would be at least at the 6th level of nascent soul. This was the reason why talent was incomparably important to a cultivator. As Qin Yu thought of this, he sighed inwardly. But he wasn't discouraged. Since there were treasures that could increase his talent, he could slowly search for them in the future. With the little blue lamp behind him, he was confident in his ability to amass wealth in the future. At worst, he would just buy. His heart filled with heroic spirit. His black robes began to flutter without wind. He lifted his hand, and between his fingers, 5 divine lights of white, black, blue, red, and yellow revolved, condensing into the 5 element swords. With a flick of his sleeves, he cut towards the metal pillar. All the sword light instantly sank into the metal pillar. There seemed to be a moment of silence before a violent roar erupted like a tsunami. Qin Yu narrowed his eyes. As he looked at the resplendent silver light that condensed into a line of numbers, He smiled as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. It wasn't easy. After 3 months of painstaking training in the dojo, he finally got rid of his identity as a mountain bandit. Combat power: 76,831 horses. 76 dragon power. Able to obtain the title of town security team member. Has the power to decide the life and death of roadside stalls. Well, please let us ignore the latter comment. His cultivation had risen by a level, and his combat strength had risen by 21 dragon power. This was Qin Yu's background. With the combination of his secret arts and mortal body, it created a terrifying result. This was how the cultivators of the land of divinity and demons truly calculated their combat strength. There were even core disciples of large sects that had heaven-shaking supernatural abilities and all sorts of secret techniques that could erupt with power. Their true cultivation might only be at the nascent soul realm, but in a critical moment of life or death, if they didn't hesitate to erupt with power, they could even kill a divine soul or even a peak divine soul. In simpler terms, they could jump ranks to fight. Compared to such a proud son of heaven, Qin Yu's current performance could only be considered decent. However, Qin Yu was already satisfied with the result. At this moment, he didn't hesitate to turn around and step into the combat room. A beam of light fell down, covering Qin Yu's figure. 2 hours later, the beam of light in the combat room suddenly vanished. The guide's figure appeared and bowed. Guest, congratulations on completing the self-defeating adventure. You are ranked 9th in history. According to the rules, you may leave behind your name for future cultivators to look up to. As he spoke, the phantom of a giant stone tablet appeared in the combat room. Even so, one could still feel the pressure and the faint ancient aura. Qin Yu was silent for several breaths of time. Then he slowly said, "Qin Yu." In the next moment, the 9th position on the stone tablet wriggled with light, and the 2 words Ning Qin appeared. The original 9th position had fallen to 10th. As for the 10th place brother, he had naturally fallen out of the ranking. The guide bowed once more and vanished along with the stone tablet. Qin Yu shook his head, not caring too much about this. He sat down cross-legged and swallowed some pills to restore himself. Because he was unfamiliar with the Tao arena, and because he didn't have much information about it, Qin Yu simply didn't know what it meant to be ranked 9th in history or what sort of shock it would cause. The Tao arena had an unknown background. It appeared 10,000 years ago and began to expand at an astonishing speed throughout the land of divinity and demons. It even became a measure of how strong a country was. The central mountain nation was a subordinate kingdom of the Zhao Empire. There was a Tao arena built in the mountains and mist. Beneath the pure white sunlight, it shined with a holy light. In front of the Tao arena's main entrance, in the skies above the profound heaven square, there was a sudden thunderclap. Winds and clouds surged in the skies, forming a giant vortex. The phantom of a stone tablet slowly appeared, and an incomparably dignified voice echoed out from deep within the vortex, as if the heavens and earth were speaking. The 9th place on the ancient parishment decree has changed. His name is Qin Yu. Boundless waves of sound rolled out in all directions. Countless cultivators looked up in shock, awe, and envy in their eyes. After over 1,000 years, the ancient parishment decree that was said to be able to destroy oneself in order to make a breakthrough had actually produced a new name. Who was this Qin Yu? Could he be a hidden legacy disciple of some super sect? Otherwise, how could he have appeared on the combat list as soon as he appeared, creating such a heaven-shaking achievement? The Qin Empire's subordinate kingdom, the Yan Empire's subordinate kingdom, the Qi Empire's subordinate kingdom, the Song Empire's subordinate kingdom. Almost at the same time, all of the Tao arenas stationed in this part of the world had similar scenes appearing in front of them. That vortex, that stone tablet, that voice that seemed to come from the heavens and earth, all of this caused the name of Qin Yu to spread through the land of divinity and demons at an unimaginable speed. To destroy oneself was known as the most impossible matter to accomplish. But anyone that could accomplish this was a stunning talent, a peerless character that stood at the peak of their time. The land of divinity and demons had countless resources. As long as one gathered enough resources, even a pig could become a divine pig that could fly in the skies. But if one wanted to achieve a peerless cultivation and become a peak powerhouse that could suppress their own domain, this wasn't something that could be accomplished by piling up resources. A cultivator needed to have a formidable talent and take the crucial step of becoming one with the heavenly Tao. In the eyes of countless people, the name Qinyu had the qualifications to take this step. Thus, orders were rapidly passed down. Find Qinyu. I have a feeling that this person is in the south. Order the South Division to investigate with all their strength. There can be no delay. Have the Stargazing Division investigate the stars and lock onto this person's position. We must bring him back. A blue sea seed has the qualifications to be a core member of my sect. Announce this to the world. We welcome Qinyu to my sect to cultivate. Qi Empire, Imperial Capital, Lindsay. The city was like a vicious beast crouching on the ground, gazing up at the great sun in the east. It seemed as if it were swallowing the essence of the sun and moon, a boundless momentum that shook the heavens and earth. Because the power of the imperial Tao was condensed and the destiny of the empire was suppressed, the heavenly Tao within Lindsay didn't appear. Instead, the supreme emperor reigned supreme. This wasn't because the Qi Empire's great emperor was arrogant and wanted to confront the heavens and earth. Rather, it was because his own terrifying cultivation had fused together with the destiny of the nation, forming a momentum that had obtained the approval of the heavens and earth. Within the 7 great empires of the land of divinity and demons, all of them had this status. Thus, within Lin Zi's Tao arena, there was no vortex or stone tablet that appeared. There was only a voice that spread out in all directions. The 9th place on the ancient parishment decree has changed. His name is Qinyu. It was unknown whether it was an illusion or not, but this voice that contained endless majesty seemed to contain a bit more caution and dread, as if it didn't want to casually step into the Qi Empire's imperial capital. Billowing waves of sound rolled through the void. This voice contained the power of rules that could ignore all spells and array formations. In the blink of an eye, it spread throughout all of Lindsay. Imperial Palace. Above the Golden Palace, a man sitting on a 9-layered dragon throne suddenly opened his eyes. A divine light flashed within them, like thunder rumbling from the highest heavens. He let out a light cough. In the next moment, that voice that reverberated through the skies of Lin Zi suddenly stopped, as if it had been erased from the world by an invisible strength. Your Majesty, in recent years the Tao arena's influence has gradually grown. Countless influences have secretly interweaved with each other, and their arrogance has grown with each passing day. Do you need me to step forward to break their momentum and suppress their destiny? Beneath the Golden Palace, a black-armored general stepped forward and bowed. His aura pulsed, causing space to collapse and countless tiny cracks to appear. The Qi Emperor lightly said, "Behind the Tao arena, there is an almighty being presiding over it. There is no need to pay attention to it for now. I will personally seek an explanation for this matter. Qi Nian, I have recently sensed that the infinite realm is about to open. Pass down a decree to my Qi Empire's great sects and imperial juniors. Select the most outstanding ones and prepare to step into the infinite realm and obtain their own good fortune." Not too far away from the Golden Palace, in a vast palace complex, a woman cultivating in a training room had unknowingly begun to cry. Across from her, another beautiful female cultivator was awakened. Her complexion changed as she saw this. "Senior apprentice, Sister Ning, what is it?" Ning Ling shook her head. She wiped away her tears and said, "I'm fine." The beautiful female cultivator's eyes turned. It was clear that her senior apprentice, Sister Ning, didn't want to speak too much. She nodded and smartly didn't ask any further. Ningling's eyes drooped down, covering up all her emotions. Countless thoughts tumbled through her mind before she finally sighed. In such a short period of time, she didn't believe that Chinyu had the chance to step into the land of divinity and demons. Taking a step back, even if he really did enter the land of divinity and demons, how could he possibly be ranked 9th on the Dao Arena's ancient perishment decree? The Dao Arena's ancient perishment decree was a domain that several proud senior apprentice brothers of the immortal sect had painstakingly chased after, but none of them had been able to step into it. It was just that they shared the same name. Ningling took a deep breath to suppress her tumbling emotions. Her mind returned to tranquility, and her aura suddenly changed. She was like an exiled immortal that couldn't be offended, noble and untouchable. The cultivation methods of the immortal sect paid particular attention to severing one's emotions and desires, to have no desires or desires. This was in line with the cultivation methods of the immortal Tao, allowing one's cultivation to rapidly rise. The female cultivator across from her revealed a look of deep envy. No wonder senior apprentice Sister Ning, who came from the land of exiles, was able to obtain the favor of the elders of the sect in such a short period of time. Her talent was just as the rumors said. She was a strong competitor for the position of saintess. Chapter 307. When time ran out, the Dao Arena cultivator who had brought Chinyu in opened the door to receive him. However, he was clearly a bit absent-minded today. His face was flushed red with excitement and envy. Chinyu didn't know what had happened, and he certainly didn't have much interest in it. In order to eliminate the puppet in the battle room, he had nearly used up everything he had, and he still hadn't recovered. His face was pale, and he looked as if he were lacking blood vitality. He entered the stairs and silently walked up. After opening it, he returned to where he came from. Ani Hong was waiting outside. Chinyu waved a hand in greeting. What puzzled him was that Auntie Hong seemed to be very excited at this time. But that was fine, so why was she looking at him? 3 months have passed. Please help yourselves. The Dao Arena cultivator nodded and hurried away. Chinyu frowned. He looked at himself and asked, Auntie Hong, is there something wrong? Auntie Hong opened her mouth to speak, but she soon regained her composure. She warily looked around and then pulled Chinyu towards the transmission array. A warm and fragrant wind wafted towards him. If Chinyu didn't know that Auntie Hong was a reserved and self-respecting person, he feared he would have been overthinking things. Light flashed. Auntie Hong and Chinyu vanished from sight. When they reappeared, they had returned to the inn within the beast hunting battalion. Within the transmission array, a fist-sized bead directly disintegrated into powder. The powerful transmission aura that lingered around the transmission array vanished with it. Chinyu's thoughts stirred. It seemed that the reason he was able to directly teleport to the Dao Arena from the beast hunting battalion was because of this pearl's effect. It was clear that there was a limit to its use, and now it had self-destructed. Chinyu, it's you! Auntie Hong's eyes shined with a divine light, as if she had discovered a new continent. Because of her excitement, her body shivered. Chinyu was given a fright. In particular, this gaze that seemed as if she wanted to swallow him whole left him with a strange complexion. Auntie Hong, are you all right? If you don't feel well, you should rest early. There's no need to specifically pick me up. Unfortunately, Auntie Hong didn't listen to these words. She spun around in excitement. I never thought that you would have hidden yourself so deeply. But in the blink of an eye, it was unknown what she thought, and she revealed a nervous expression. Chinyu, you aren't thinking of leaving, right? Our inn has been very good to you, and there is also the Miss Good Intentions. You cannot be too heartless. What was going on? Chinyu was confused. Moreover, what the hell was the Miss's Intentions? He bitterly smiled. Auntie Hong, I have no idea what you are talking about. Auntie Hong revealed a suspicious expression. You really don't know? Seeing him seriously nod, she frowned and said, Besides you, who else is called Chinyu? I don't believe there is such a coincidence. Mr. Qin, tell me honestly, did you defeat the puppet in the combat room in the Taoist dojo? Qin Yu thought back to the stone tablet that had appeared with the guide. But wasn't this something that only he had witnessed? How did Ani Hong know? Qin Yu began to feel that things weren't as simple as he thought. He hesitated for a moment and then nodded. That's right. Auntie Hong let out a long breath. I knew it was you. She blinked. Don't you know what this means? Qin Yu nodded honestly. Auntie Hong revealed a hesitant expression. After thinking for a long time, she clenched her teeth and said, It's fine. If I hide this matter from you, I fear that once you learn of it in the future, you will definitely be dissatisfied. She looked at Qin Yu. In the Dao Arena's combat room, anyone that can defeat themselves is extremely rare and precious. You should be well aware of how difficult it is. During this process, those that perform extremely well will be ranked on the ancient perishment decree. And this ancient perishment decree has another name, the ancient perishment decree. The so-called perishment refers to the destruction of oneself and the rebirth from that destruction. As long as a cultivator can step onto the ancient perishment decree, they're all unparalleled geniuses of their generation. Every time the decree changes, news of it will inevitably spread throughout the world. She took out her handphone and tapped the screen several times. Soon, she placed a video in front of Qin Yu. Although the image was a bit shaky, the vortex in the skies, the stone tablet within the vortex, and the booming voice could still be clearly seen and heard. Qin Yu was stunned. He quickly scrolled down the video. The comments section below the video was filled with all sorts of envy, jealousy, hate, worship, and flattery, nearly blinding his eyes. He was in a daze for a long time before he gradually realized that he seemed to have quietly done something incredible. The ancient perishment decree has changed. In the land of divinity and demons, another peerless proud son of heaven is rising. Anyone that can find Qin Yu is the same as finding a future Blue Sea Realm Supreme Elder. Qin Yu has accumulated enough strength to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. His talent and potential are unfathomable. All sorts of praises flooded the network. On the social media accounts of the various sects and families, many of them expressed their hopes that Qin Yu would come to them to cultivate. The treatment they gave him was so good that it was enough to turn the cultivators in the comment section into red-eyed rabbits. As Qin Yu saw this, he couldn't help but bitterly smile. The example of the Yu family was right in front of him. If he really went there, then he feared that these influences that wanted to dig him up at all costs would immediately throw him into the abyss. Perhaps in order to save face, they might even kill him to silence him. Auntie Hong had a nervous expression. She was afraid that she would see any bad signs from Qin Yu's face. After all, with his current status, if he wanted to leave, there were countless powerful influences that would welcome him with open arms. In comparison, although the yin wasn't weak, it didn't have the slightest bit of core competitiveness. And most importantly, the relationship between Qin Yu and the yin could only be considered a cooperative one. And no matter how one looked at it, it was the yin that was taking advantage of him. If he really wanted to leave, there was nothing the yin could do. It was because of this that she had panicked and blurted out the matter of the miss. But Qin Yu's current complexion wasn't normal at all. After the initial shock, he was calm and even a bit helpless. Could it be that he didn't want to reveal too much of his fame? How was that possible? This was the ancient perishment decree. As long as Qin Yu wanted to, he could transform it into a great killing tool that would help him pave his future road of cultivation. Cough, cough, Qin Yu, what is it? Qin Yu took a deep breath, his expression earnest. Auntie Hong, I hope that you can keep this matter a secret for me. He paused and then bluntly said, That Qin Yu on the ancient perishment decree has nothing to do with me. If I say this, can you understand? What nonsense. If news of this were to spread out, that would be a major matter. All sorts of storms would gather in the blink of an eye. And most importantly, Qin Yu simply didn't have the talent that was touted on the internet. At that time, he would inevitably stir up a great storm and even bring about a fatal disaster. For instance, the Southern Overwatch Pass U family. They would absolutely kick Chinyu while he was down and kill him in order to avoid any future retaliation. But Auntie Hong didn't know of any of this. In front of her, Chinyu's figure suddenly became mysterious. Countless thoughts flashed through her mind. Such a powerful alchemist had actually joined the beast hunting battalion with the status of an ordinary soldier. If it weren't for the young Mrs. Problem exposing him, no one would have thought of this. Moreover, the reason he was painstakingly concealing his identity on the ancient perishment decree was because he didn't want others to know about it. In addition to his poor understanding of the outside world, in the great mansions of rich and powerful families, there were concubine juniors that weren't valued. Because of their outstanding talent, they were persecuted and imprisoned. They had to spend a great deal of effort to escape, not wanting to be discovered by anyone. Now, they were enduring all sorts of hardships in order to one day be able to openly return and seek justice for their mother, who had been persecuted to death. As for why it was because their mother had been persecuted to death, wasn't that how all the television dramas played out? Thanks to the various television dramas, Auntie Hong was able to find a reasonable explanation for Chinyu. Thus, she didn't ask any further questions. Her expression was dignified and her eyes shined with pity. Mr. Qin, rest assured that I will keep this a secret for you. I will not let anyone know that you are at the inn. Chinyu had originally thought of a massive number of reasons. For instance, his cultivation was too weak, and if he obtained too much attention, he might be persecuted by others. But he never imagined that none of these would be used. Moreover, looking at Auntie Hong's appearance, it was clear she had already determined something in her heart and given him a very solid reason. Although this was a good thing and could avoid a great deal of trouble, the key point was that Chinyu didn't know what to say. So how could Auntie Hong instantly understand? Cough, cough. Then I'll have to trouble Auntie Hong. Auntie Hong solemnly said, Mr. Qin, nothing can be rushed. You should cultivate first and increase your cultivation. After all, the future is long. Although our inn isn't considered a super strong influence, protecting one or two people shouldn't be a problem. You don't need to worry about anything else. I will help you handle it. Faintly, Chinyu could guess some things from her words. He didn't know whether to laugh or to cry, but he also relaxed. Whatever, there was no trouble. She could think however she wanted. He spoke a few more words with a heavy expression, reinforcing Auntie Hong's guesses. As he watched Auntie Hong walk away, Chinyu rubbed his nose, a helpless look on his face. The ancient perishment decree that others struggled to pursue. Why did it become such a great burden when it fell onto him? Did having poor talent mean that one didn't have human rights? However, since the ancient perishment decree was so important and had caused such a great storm, even the immortal sect that was far away should know of it. Senior apprentice Sister Ning, did she know? Chinyu's eyes revealed a trace of gentleness and longing. He thought back to the day when he first met Ningling. The awkwardness and heartbreak at the start had now turned into a faint warmth. Senior apprentice Sister Ning, I said I would look for you, and I will definitely keep my promise. Please wait for me. I will appear in front of you as soon as possible. The South Shine Nation's youth alchemy competition arrived as scheduled. Such a grand alchemy event naturally attracted the attention of tens of millions of young cultivators. Everyone hoped to take advantage of this opportunity to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat and fight for a brighter future for themselves. Thus, the registration point could be called a sea of people. The long line stretched out like a snake with no end in sight. Chapter 308. Ever since the Today's Weather Discussion Program team had broadcasted the process of appraising the divine blood pill, black robes had become the most popular attire. It was said that wearing black robes could enhance one's sense of mystery and make it easier to win the hearts of female cultivators. But any trend had a time limit. After that day, Qi Ning didn't appear in public again, so black robes were gradually eliminated. If one were to wear them now, they wouldn't be trendy anymore. They could only be considered to be copying others' ideas. It was no wonder that in the line next to him, there were several men wearing the latest tight-fitting clothes that found Chinyu displeasing to the eye. Of course, the most important reason was that Chinyu had somehow managed to run into some dogshit luck. His clothes had actually managed to attract the favor of a petite and cute female cultivator from the neighboring team. She had a cute and chubby face, and she had been chattering away with him the entire time. This caused several men who had a favorable impression of her to feel sour in their hearts as they scowled at her. Chinyu was helpless. As someone who didn't like trouble, he had already displayed a sufficiently cold and indifferent attitude. But who knew that this little girl didn't seem to notice anything at all and continued to be so enthusiastic? There was nothing he could do about it. He could only respond to this little girl's strange questions and resolutely refuse her request to see his true appearance. Unfortunately, Chinyu's cold attitude wasn't able to force this little girl away. Rather, it caused the surrounding men to dislike him even more. A beauty that they didn't have a chance to curry favor with was so interested in him, and yet he still dared to act so arrogantly? Was he trying to show off to them? Naturally, their gazes became even more hostile. After waiting for a long time, it was finally their turn. Once they paid the security deposit, they could leave. The security deposit was one of the more interesting things in the youth alchemy competition. It was used to prevent cheating, because once it was discovered, this security deposit of 30,000 spirit stones would be directly confiscated. Suddenly, a cry echoed in his ears. In the line next to him, the chattering and cute little female cultivator suddenly paled. "It's over, it's over. I took off my storage ring yesterday when I was bathing. I actually forgot to bring it." She anxiously looked at the South Shy Nation official behind the long table. Although the middle-aged man enjoyed her gaze, 30,000 spirit stones wasn't a small number. He could only harden his heart and say, "All participating cultivators must pay a security deposit. This is the rule. Today is the only registration day. If you miss it, you won't be able to participate again. If you don't have spirit stones with you, you can borrow some from a friend." Ah, how could I forget? The cute little female cultivator took out her handphone. The cute cartoon rabbit phone case really did match her style. Her slender and dexterous fingers tapped on the screen a few times before she suddenly stopped, a sad look on her face. I almost forgot that he ran away from home. How could he be so cowardly and admit defeat after just a few days? As for her friend, she naturally couldn't say anything. Otherwise, she would definitely be laughed at for doing such an embarrassing thing. She definitely couldn't lose face like this. Blinking her eyes, the young female cultivator turned around. Her pitiful eyes fell on Chinyu. Why are you looking at me?" Chinyu was puzzled. He lowered his head and pretended not to see anything. Unfortunately, this little girl clearly wouldn't let him off so easily. "Big brother, I didn't bring any spirit stones today. Can I lend you 30,000? I'll return it to you later." The several surrounding men, who were just like peacocks, suddenly widened their eyes. They gulped down mouthfuls of saliva, nearly choking themselves to death. 30,000 spirit stones. This was 30,000 spirit stones. How come she made it sound like it was only 3 or 5? She was just asking to lend it to him. Originally, all of them had been angry and envious that Chinyu was favored by her, but now all of them rejoiced. Luckily, the one she was looking for just now wasn't them. With so many people watching, if he refused her, it would be too shameful. But if he didn't refuse, "Little mushroom, this is the first time we've met, so do you really expect me to obediently hand over 30,000 spirit stones to you?" As those small eyes fell on Chinyu, they revealed expressions as if they were watching a good show. Hee, what luck with women. It really isn't reliable at all. This is more like a calamity of love. I want to see just what you brat can do now. Even in the land of divinity and demons, 30,000 spirit stones was a considerable sum. It was enough to move the hearts of many people. Chinyu furrowed his eyebrows. Just as he was about to refuse, He saw the clear eyes of the female cultivator across from him, revealing a bit of helplessness and hope. For some reason, this sort of gaze caused Qin Yu's heart to soften a little. The words that reached his mouth couldn't come out. After a moment of silence, he took out a card and said, "For you." The young female cultivator's eyes instantly erupted with a bright light. She took the card and repeatedly thanked him before handing it to the official behind the long table. The middle-aged man's eyes widened. He had a stunned expression on his face, as if saying, "I came from a small place. Don't scare me." It was only when the young female cultivator knocked on the table that he regained his composure. Then, with a dazed expression, he helped her complete the registration procedures. With a swipe of his finger, the data was quickly transmitted back. 30,000 spirit stones had been deducted. This wasn't a joke. This really wasn't a joke. Holy shit, 30,000 spirit stones. Big brother, you gave it away without blinking. It wasn't just the middle-aged cultivator behind the long table, but the several young men waiting to see a joke were all left dumbfounded. How could he be so rich? Although all of them felt extreme disdain towards Qin Yu's foolish actions, if he could casually take out 30,000 spirit stones as if it wasn't a big deal, how could he be someone easy to deal with? They subconsciously restrained their gazes, lest they invite disaster upon themselves. As for why they called him a foolish person, what nonsense! Who would take off their storage ring while bathing? Those things weren't afraid of being submerged in water, and even if they did take it off, would they forget to keep it on their person? Don't be naive. To a cultivator, a storage ring was as important as their life. If they could forget something like that, then they could fool a ghost. Big brother, thank you for your card. I, little Fong, am a man of my word. I will definitely return it to you. She bounced over and returned the card to Qin Yu. But at this time, her hand phone suddenly rang. She looked down at the great Demon King's wildly laughing reminder on the screen and revealed a flustered expression. "Ah, they'll find me soon. Big brother, I'll see you later." She turned and ran. In several breaths of time, she vanished from sight. She left just like that? The originally stunned crowd was stunned once more. As they looked at Qin Yu, they couldn't help but reveal a bit of pity. 30,000 spirit stones. He had thrown out this amount of money, and yet he hadn't even been able to hold his hand, much less anything else. A loss. This was a massive loss. A loss that reached his grandma's house. Qin Yu's eyes revealed a bit of astonishment. This little girl said she would return the money, but he didn't even know her name from the start. In this vast sea of people, where would he go to find her? Could it be that he had really misjudged her? Qin Yu frowned and immediately suppressed these thoughts. It was only 30,000 spirit stones. If he wanted to, he could casually take out some pills and earn it back. Moreover, he had 4 similar cards in his storage ring, each one with a limit of 1,000,000 spirit stones. "Please show me your identity card." Behind the long table was a delicate and pretty female cultivator. She was gloating at Qin Yu. As a cultivator working for the state, she naturally didn't need to worry about any retaliation. Who told you to be so lustful, to think that your brain wouldn't be able to handle a beautiful woman? Now that you've suffered a great loss, you really deserve it. However, when she inadvertently saw the identity card that Qin Yu handed over, her eyes subconsciously widened. As she looked at Qin Yu's stunned expression, she opened her mouth to say something. Qin Yu hurriedly lifted his hand. "Miss, please help me handle it as soon as possible. Thank you." It was only then that the female cultivator regained her composure. She excitedly nodded again and again. She never thought that her luck would be so good that she would be able to see him. During the process, she carefully looked around. The more she looked, the more familiar she found him. Ning Qin. He had the identity card issued by the inn, and he had also hidden his identity so that no one else would know. It was definitely him. Big Brother Black-Robed, my most sincere and trustworthy Big Brother Black-Robed. No wonder he didn't even bat an eyelid just now and gave that little girl 30,000 spirit stones. Only my big brother black-robed would have such boldness and boldness. Women, sometimes they were fickle and fickle. Just now they were laughing at him, but now they were filled with admiration. He swiped his card and paid the deposit. After receiving the receipt, Chinyu nodded in thanks. Under the reluctant gaze of the female cultivator, he turned and left. Many people around him had strange expressions. Could this person really be some extraordinary and famous character? Otherwise, why would this woman have such a dazed and distracted expression? At almost the same time, in a room not too far away from the registration area, a massive number of cultivators were gathered. All participating cultivators had to undergo a second round of verification. Only after there were no problems would they be able to pass. In front of a screen, a bored cultivator's eyes suddenly brightened. He stared at an identity card that had just appeared. Ning Qin. Haha. He never thought that a simple screening tool he made would actually be useful. He really did come to participate in the competition. He carefully looked over it. If he came from the inn, then there was no mistake. After finding an excuse, the cultivator left work early. He took out his hand phone, typed out a message, and pressed send. A moment later, there was a light ding. The cultivator quickly picked up his hand phone. As he looked at his balance, he revealed an excited smile. 100,000 spirit stones. This was 100,000 spirit stones. It was equal to several years of hard work. Ning Qin, don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for offending someone. Philosophy Watch. Not too long ago, Elder Nangong had been filled with extraordinary grace and high spirits. But now he was lying on his bed. His complexion was dark and haggard, as if he were suffering from a serious illness. In the past, he had thought that the inn would be completely trampled beneath his feet. But who would have thought that after a series of twists and turns, not only would he not succeed, but he would instead become the inn's most successful advertising campaign. In particular, the reason for this result was that he had promised someone else to eat one of their extraordinary divine blood pills. How could Elder Nangong not be angry and ashamed? Anger attacked his heart, and in addition to the pressure from the sect, it was hard for him not to fall sick. At this time, as he looked at the message on his handphone, his dim eyes suddenly lit up. Ning Qin. Ning Qin. This little bastard, he would never forget him for the rest of his life. If it weren't for him, how could he have ended up in such a miserable state? Elder Nangong looked up at the person in front of his bed. Pass down my order. No matter the cost, I want this person to not live to see tomorrow. Yes, Elder. Hearing the hatred in these words, the Philosophy Watch cultivator trembled in fright. He respectfully bowed and hurried away. Qin, you naturally didn't know that news of him participating in the competition had already been sold to his great enemy, Philosophy Watch, by a greedy official who was abusing his power for personal gain. Now, a group of cultivators had come looking for him with killing intent in their hearts. Luckily, he had always been a cautious person. When he registered, he wore a black robe, but not long after he left, he took it off. This caused the black-robed Philosophy Watch cultivators to miss their target. They couldn't help but curse this brat for being incomparably cunning. In his heart, after praising the divine blood pill, Qin didn't want to use the name Ning Qin anymore. Unfortunately, the great competition had an extremely strict examination of the identities of the participating cultivators. Qin had no choice but to use the alias that he had exposed himself to make it easier for the inn to deal with him. After all, everyone knew that there was a brat called Ning Qin in the inn. He was loyal and courageous, cough cough, he shouldn't toot his own horn. As for Qin Yu's real name, after what happened with the ancient perishment decree, he absolutely couldn't use it again. Today he registered, and tomorrow he would enter the wilderness. Once he passed through the designated area, he would truly have the qualifications to participate in the competition. Qin you casually found in a nearby and stayed there. He took out pills and began to cultivate. There was no need to mention just how many black-robed cultivators had suffered undeserved calamities that night. At the very least, Chinyu passed his days quite well. At dawn, he opened his eyes, a sharp light flashing within them. His cultivation had risen a bit more. Chapter 309. The proud and pampered Chinyu tidied up his things. Then he and the many participating cultivators from the inn stepped onto the street and gathered at the starting point. But what was strange was that many of the cultivators he met on the street were bruised and swollen, as if they had been brutally beaten. Could it be that some sort of mass incident occurred last night? The competition was just around the corner, and yet they were still in the mood to do such things. As expected, the cultivators of the land of divinity and demons really knew how to play. Chinyu shook his head, no longer bothering with them. He followed the stream of people forwards, occasionally glancing around. He felt that something was missing from the crowd today. He didn't think he was wrong. He frowned and suddenly realized that there wasn't a single person wearing black robes in the crowd. This was strange. When he registered yesterday, although there weren't many people wearing black robes, there were still some. So, how come everyone had changed clothes today? There didn't seem to be such a rule in the rules of the competition. As he was thinking, Chinyu soon arrived at the designated gathering point and waited to set off. Without delaying for too long, the cultivators of the competition began to hand out a timer. This thing was simple, and its function was exactly the same as its name. Its only use was to calculate time. This was because only cultivators that passed through the wilderness in less than a day had the qualifications to participate. Otherwise, they would all be forced out. Chinyu received this little thing and was solemnly reminded to take good care of it. It was shaped like a small hourglass. When the departure signal was sent out, it would begin to fall down for a full day. Of course, although this thing was simple, it wasn't simple at all. In the past South Shine Nation youth alchemy competitions, there had been people that had tried to play tricks on the hourglass. But no matter how exquisite their methods were, they were easily discovered and they lost everything. That was 30,000 spirit stones as a base. If one were to think about it in the dark, perhaps the South Shine Nation officials were hoping that all the participating cultivators would play some tricks. If so, they would have struck it rich. Everyone, we will begin to enter the wilderness in an hour. If you wish to form a team, please hurry. After the officials reminded everyone, the open space outside the city immediately became chaotic. Shouts and shouts rose and fell. Brother Su, Brother Wang, hurry up. The 5 of us will form a team. A team of 4. We have both offense and defense. We're in urgent need of fellow Taoists with speed. If you join, your safety will be guaranteed. Are there any fellow Taoists with high defensive earth attribute abilities? We are waiting for you to join us. That's right, while traversing through the wilderness, one could form a team. Although the South Shine Nation officials had combed through the wilderness before the start of the competition to determine that there wouldn't be any powerful monster beasts that surpassed the limits of their resistance, this didn't mean there weren't any dangers. The purpose of the competition was to unearth talents, not to let the young cultivators of the younger generation run off to feed monster beasts. If they formed a team, it would be much safer. Of course, 5 people was the maximum number of people in a team. Otherwise, if dozens or hundreds of people walked together, the wilderness trial would not be challenging at all. It would not be able to eliminate them at all. Oh, that's right, this round is called the wilderness trial. Chinyu was a bit hesitant. He didn't know many people, and it wasn't necessarily safe for him to form a team with others. After thinking about it for a bit, he might as well go on his own. With his current cultivation, there shouldn't be any problems. Just as he was thinking of this, he suddenly heard a cry of surprise. "Big brother, it's you!" Chinyu turned and saw little Fong Fong running towards him, her face full of joy. He subconsciously frowned. When they met yesterday, he was wearing a black robe. How could this little girl recognize him? "Hey, big brother, we really are brought together by fate. Yesterday, I left in a hurry and forgot to ask for your name. I was just worrying about how to return your spirit stones. As she spoke, she took out her handphone. Come, come, big brother, let's add each other as friends. I'll transfer the money to you. Cheen Yu calmly took out his handphone. As she was busying herself, he lightly asked, How did you recognize me? Isn't that simple? I just relied on my nose. Little Fong Fong had a proud expression. I'm very fierce. As long as I smell someone's aura, no matter if it's a person or an object, I can firmly remember them and never forget them. Cheen Yu relaxed a little. If this was the case, then it wouldn't be much of a problem. But at this time a cold snort sounded out. Fong Fong, don't speak so casually. Black hair, white robes, pink face, and starry eyes. If Cheen Yu had to choose a ranking of the most handsome men he had ever seen in his life, this person would definitely be on it. His eyes were cold and arrogant. It was clear he came from an extraordinary background. Cousin, please be a bit more polite. This is the big brother that lent me spirit stones yesterday. If it weren't for him, I fear I wouldn't have been able to smoothly register. Little Fong Fong glared at him. Her fingers nimbly tapped the screen of her handphone a few times. She looked up and smiled. All right, 50,000 spirit stones will be transferred to your account soon. Cheen Yu shook his head. I don't need that much. Little Fong Fong was full of pride. Big brother helped me out of kindness, so of course I should be rewarded. Moreover, little Fong Fong doesn't lack money. Big brother, just keep it. The handsome cousin had an ill complexion. He had already heard about what happened yesterday from little Fong Fong. He originally thought that Cheen Yu was deliberately approaching them with ill intentions. But now that he saw Cheen Yu receive 20,000 spirit stones out of thin air and still maintain such a calm expression, he sneered inwardly and became even more certain of his guess. This person most likely knew of his cousin's identity and was deliberately trying to approach her. Hee, this old man has seen this sort of thing many times. If he wants to ascend to the heavens in a single bound and become the son-in-law of his uncle's family, then he can keep dreaming. Fong Fong, the spirit stones have been returned. Let's go. If he didn't even give him a chance to approach her, then let's see just what sort of tricks he had up his sleeve. Cheen Yu could feel the hostility coming from the handsome cousin and the man and woman behind him. He could roughly guess the reason, but he didn't feel angry. He cupped his hands together and said, Then we'll part ways here. He turned around and left without hesitation. That was true. The handsome cousin was startled. Did he think he was overthinking things? But in the next moment, his complexion darkened. He clenched his teeth for a long time and cursed inwardly. What a good cat and mouse game. He watched as his little cousin, who had been spoiled endlessly since childhood, bounced up and down as she chased after him. Big brother, are you alone? How about you form a team with us? We just happen to be missing one. Cheen Yu's arm was held by her, and he had no choice but to stop. He helplessly said, Forget it. Big brother, do you have an appointment with someone? Little Fong Fong blinked her eyes, looking pitiful. Cheen Yu felt a headache coming on. I don't. Good. Then I welcome Big brother to join us. With you here, little Fong Fong can feel at ease. Otherwise, if I were to be carried around by this idiot cousin of mine, I really would be a little scared. The handsome cousin's face darkened. He clenched his teeth and roared, White Fong Fong, shut up! After taking several deep breaths, he sneered, Our team is still missing an assistant wet nurse. If this fellow Taoist isn't one, then don't waste your time. Black Bebe, you're the one who should shut up. Big brother is my benefactor. If you dare to refuse him, I will run away right now and then tell my father and mother that you forced me to run away from home. Hiss! Black Bebe sucked in a breath of cold air. He was shocked by this little girl's ruthlessness. For an outsider she had only met for the second time, she had actually used such a great killing weapon against him. Could it be that this little girl was thinking of love? Shit, no, absolutely no. Otherwise, his uncle wouldn't even need to do anything. His auntie would tear him apart. Don't panic, let me think things through. In this current situation, it's too early to say that she's in love with him. Perhaps she only has a favorable impression of him. If I force this boy away, I fear it will arouse my cousin's rebellious thoughts. At that time, it will be even more troublesome. I might as well bring him along with me. With this Lord Black's eyes blazing like torches, what sort of storm would this boy be able to stir up? Moreover, looking at his cultivation, he seemed to be at the 3rd or 4th level of nascent soul at most. Once they entered the wilderness, he would find a chance to make him suffer a bit and also make a fool of himself. Then his cousin would naturally lose interest in him. Ha! This Lord Black is truly smart. He is truly worthy of being the most respected, most likable, and most handsome man in the world. Something doesn't seem right. Lord Black thought for a moment, and then his body stiffened. He glanced behind him and saw that the delicate little sister's face had indeed stiffened. He howled inwardly. He ruthlessly glared at White Fong Fong. You damned little girl, you actually dared to call out Lord Black's name. Don't you know that this is a taboo? I will remember this debt for you. Black Bebe lightly coughed and pretended as if he didn't know anything. He said in a low voice, Since you helped my cousin, I will allow you to join us. But the wilderness is different from other places. There can be dangers at any time, so you must be careful. If something happens, don't blame me for not warning you. Chin Yu was a bit disappointed. How come it seemed like he was begging to join? It was clear that you didn't even say anything and just made the decision yourself. He wanted to politely decline, but White Fong Fong had already cheered out loud. She hugged him even tighter and pulled him forwards. Wilderness, your big sister Fong Fong is here. A warm and soft feeling came from his arm. Chin Yu never imagined that this delicate little girl would have such a body. After a brief daze, she had already brought him far away. When he regained his composure and saw her cheerful appearance, he hesitated and swallowed his words of refusal back down. Whatever, it's just a day. I'll just endure it for a bit. If Black Bebe knew what Chin Yu was thinking right now, he would absolutely fly into a rage. But even if he didn't know, his complexion was still ugly. Behind him, the purple-robed man had a look of jealousy. Brother Black, are we just going to watch as Miss White is tricked by this person? Humph! I can tell with a single glance that he isn't a good person. The little sister also wore a purple dress, although she felt that her big brother's words weren't right and that this little brother was quite likable. Thinking that this matter involved the person her big brother liked, she had to stand on the same side as him. Thus she earnestly nodded. Hearing the words Brother Black, Black Bebe's heart twitched. A feeling of speechlessness rose up in his heart before turning into annoyance. It was all this bastard's fault. If it weren't for him, how could his cousin have flipped out like this? Moreover, she would have ignored the agreement they made in the past and revealed the name of his true self? Brother Black clenched his teeth and said, Don't worry. Once we enter the wilderness, there will be plenty of chances to mess with him. I have to let him know that if he offends us, there will be no good ending for him. The big brother was overjoyed. Brother Black, rest assured that I will do my best to help you so that Miss White can see this brat's true face. The little sister clenched her fists. Big Brother Black, me too. Bibi turned and walked away. He looked up at the skies, not allowing the tears to fall down his cheeks. Black, your sister. You're the one who's black. Your entire family is black. Chapter 310. Big Brother, I haven't asked yet. What's your name? Baloo, what a good name. It's very similar to Big Brother's personality. Big Brother, after the competition ends, how about you come home with me to play? My father and mother will definitely like you. Chapter 310. There were few people in the wilderness. Even after the South Shine Nation had swept through this area, most of the sunlight was blocked out by the ancient trees. It was so dark that it left one's heart filled with dread. Brother Black cautiously looked around. He couldn't help but listen to the sounds coming from behind him. Then, His lips couldn't help but twitch. Baoyu, with such a name, didn't you have any shame? Just from this alone, one could see his despicable and shameless nature. Cousin, why are you so stubborn? Why are you calling me more and more intimately? Big brother Baoyu. You've never called me Big Brother Bebe before. I am your cousin, your blood cousin. Can you not hurt me like this? The purple-robed youth's complexion was as black as the bottom of a pot. He clenched his teeth from time to time. He also wanted to interrupt, but before he could say 2 words, White Fong Fong had driven him back. She told him to open the way and not disturb her conversation with Big Brother Baoyu. His little sister had a sympathetic expression, but she couldn't do anything about this sort of thing. She could only say that her big brother's skills were inferior. Otherwise, why wouldn't Miss White stick to him? Baoyu, I'm tired. You open the way. Bebe turned and roared, but what greeted him was an entire bottle of pills. White Fong Fong didn't even look at him. If you're tired, take 1. If you're tired, take 2. If you're tired, take 3. Don't disturb me talking to Big Brother Baoyu. Ah, Big Brother, where were you just now? It's all because of my stupid cousin. He can't even do something as simple as opening the way, and he still wants to disturb us. Bebe nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. Blue veins popped up on his forehead, and his field of vision darkened. He really wanted to shout out loud, White Fong Fong, just who is your cousin? But he knew that if he dared to shout out loud, the one who would lose face in the end would be him. That girl, White Fong Fong, had bullied him since he was a child. Up until today, he hadn't been able to take advantage of her at all. The purple-robed youth glared at Brother Black, his meaning clear. Was this what he meant when he said that after entering the wilderness, there would be ways to punish him? Bebe's face flushed red. He drily coughed and hurried along, occasionally tearing apart the thorns and trees. From his hateful appearance, it was likely he thought they were Chinyu. That's right. This trip into the wilderness was because of White Fing Fing's favor and closeness. To Chinyu, it was like a spring outing. Black Bebe was quite strong. He had a 7th-level nascent soul cultivation, and from the way he attacked, it was clear he was holding back a great deal. Of the purple siblings, the big brother's defensive capabilities were astonishing, and the little sister was skilled in wood magic. The 2 of them cooperated much more easily than Black Bebe. Even if they encountered several monster beasts that didn't open their eyes, the 3 of them could easily take them down. Let alone Chinyu, he didn't even need to glance at them. The only thing that gave him a headache was that this girl, White Fing Fing's questions were endless, and they were developing in an increasingly strange direction. Just as Chinyu felt that he couldn't persist any longer, a small change quietly occurred in this comfortable situation. The number of demonic beasts attacking the team of 5 seemed to be increasing. It was not a sudden increase. Instead, it maintained a certain range and increased bit by bit. Bebe was depressed, the purple-robed elder brother was gnashing his teeth, and the purple-robed younger sister was only concerned with lamenting for her brother. The 3 of them didn't seem to notice anything amiss. Chinyu frowned, interrupting White Fing Fing's rambling. Don't you think that the number of demonic beasts we'll encounter has increased? White Fong Fong wasn't dissatisfied with Chinyu interrupting her. She had an expression that said, Big Brother Baoyu, you're so observant, I really admire you. Really? Bebe's lips twitched. He thought, you silly girl, you didn't even look at him the entire way here. So what the hell do you know? You're just trying to curry favor with this bastard. What's so good about him? He's far too lacking compared to me, like the distance between a star and the sun. As he thought of this, anger began to tumble within him. He tossed aside his original surprise and dissatisfaction towards Chinyu. He sneered and said, What are you afraid, Baoyu? The demonic beasts in this area have already been cleaned up by the South Shy Nation's masters. If you still feel fear in this situation, then I can only express my surprise at your courage. The purple-robed big brother's surname was Jiang Wuhai. At this time his spirits rose. It was finally time for him to counterattack. He pretended to be indifferent as he said, When I was 12 years old, I followed my father and brother into the wilderness to adventure. By the time I was 16 years old, I had already completed 3 journeys alone. He swept his eyes around. Fellow Taoist Baoyu, you still need to temper yourself. Jiang Ziyuan's eyes brightened. She looked at her big brother with worship. In her heart, her big brother had always been the most outstanding person. Now, her big brother had finally found a chance to reveal himself in front of Miss White. He would definitely be able to reverse the situation and make Miss White's impression of him completely surpass Baoyu's. But White Fingfing's following words caused Jiang Ziyuan to stumble. Even though she had the temperament of a noble young lady, she actually wanted to curse out loud. Oh, then it really is a miracle that you've lived until now. Or, where your family comes from, the demonic beasts are all vegetarians. This wasn't the most infuriating part. The key point was that after she finished speaking, she turned to Qinyu with a longing expression. Big brother Baoyu, do you also think that Feng Feng is right? Jiang Wuhai's eyes nearly turned red. He stubbornly glared at Qinyu, his expression saying that if Qinyu dared to say even half a word more, he would immediately go all out against him. He wasn't afraid, but it was best not to provoke trouble, especially this sort of inexplicable trouble. Qinyu humphed, indicating that he had no opinion on this. White Feng Feng proudly looked up. I knew that to Big Brother Baoyu. These things aren't worth mentioning at all. You don't even have the spirit to comment on them. There's no need to say anything else. Feng Feng understands. You are what my father once said, someone who is extremely skilled and also extremely low-key. You aren't like some people who keep saying how fierce they are. Shallow to the extreme. Whoosh, a slender, golden-patterned leopard fiercely pounced forwards. It opened its mouth, revealing fangs that shined with a cold light. Jiang Wuhai shouted out loud and punched at the leopard's mouth. With a loud crackling sound, the golden-patterned leopard's fangs broke at the root. It was sent flying through the air, blood raining down from the sky. It fell to the ground with a mournful cry, gasping for air. It didn't seem like it would survive for much longer. Jiang Wuhai drew back his fist. The skin of his palm had turned into a faint layer of gold. There were several shallow white marks on it, but it hadn't even broken through his skin. This mortal body could be called powerful. After punching out, perhaps because he had vented out some of the pent-up anger in his heart, Jiang Wuhai's complexion became much calmer. He shook off the beads of blood on his arm, causing the surrounding trees to rustle. The wind swirled around his purple robes. Beneath the dim light, his tall and straight back was like a mountain, giving off an incomparably peaceful feeling. Jiang Ziyuan's fingers moved. As she stimulated the wind to act as a foil, she looked at her big brother with worship. Miss White, just look, what a reliable and handsome little fellow you are. How could sweet words and sweet nothings compare to this? Open your eyes wide and see just who is your best choice. Black Bebe was a bit surprised. This Jiang family boy's mortal body cultivation was far stronger than he had imagined. It had actually reached the golden skin level. No wonder he dared to have thoughts about little Feng Feng, disregarding everything else. Just with a superhuman bodily defense, he wouldn't be easily beaten to death when he was with little Feng Feng in the future. Just this point alone might cause his uncle and aunt to look at him in a higher light. After all, if he had to interact with little Feng Feng, the pressure of survival would be great. The Jiang family brother and sister's fantasies were beautiful, but reality immediately taught them a cruel lesson. The schoolmate, White Fingfing's eyes widened and her mouth fell open. Just as Jiang Wuhai revealed a smile, she seemed to discover something very surprising. She grabbed onto Qin Yu's hand and shouted, Big Brother Baoyu, look, there's actually someone so stupid. He can casually take out a magic tool from his storage ring and send the golden-patterned leopard away. But he's actually using his fists to fight it. Isn't he afraid that his hand will be bitten off? Indeed, what my mother said was right. A man that is born too beautiful has a bad brain. I thought that only my cousin was like this, but I never thought I would meet another one today. Jiang Wuhai's smile froze on his face, and his body shivered. At this moment, Qin Yu could clearly see what heartbreak was in his eyes. Even if he didn't have a good impression of Jiang Wuhai, he still couldn't help but feel some sympathy for him. Jiang Ziyuan wanted to say something, but was pulled back by Jiang Wuhai. Her face scrunched up, filled with anger and grievance. But she also knew that White Fingfing's background wasn't something that their Jiang family could provoke. Black Beibei patted Jiang Wuhai's shoulder, a look of pity in his eyes. It's not that I don't want to give you a chance, but that you can't even pass the first test of this little grandaunt. It's best if you give up on me. Let's hurry. White Fongfong was confused. Why was everyone suddenly silent? Did she say something that she shouldn't have said? Thinking about it carefully, she didn't. Facing her questioning eyes, Qin Yu nearly choked on his own spit. He coughed several times and waved his hand, indicating that she didn't want to ask him anything and that he didn't know anything. But soon, a dignified expression appeared on his face. This was because the number of monster beasts they encountered had increased. Of course, because the angry Jiang family siblings were here, these monster beasts that jumped out were easily sent back to their homes to be eaten. Thus, it didn't seem too difficult. Even Black Beibei seemed a bit leisurely. He placed his hands in his pockets, a relaxed expression on his face. Qin Yu thought for a moment and decided not to speak further. After all, the monster beasts here had already been cleaned up by the South Shine Nation officials. With the strength they displayed, there shouldn't be any problems. As night fell, Black Beibei announced that they would rest for the time being. He took out a map and looked at it. They had already traversed more than half the distance. If everything went smoothly, they would arrive at the Marshall Field tomorrow morning. There was still plenty of time. Qin Yu sat down cross-legged. Little Fongfong was sitting beside him. This little girl was tricky to others and her mouth was fierce, but it was unknown why she was so cautious around Qin Yu. When he closed his eyes and meditated, little Fongfong was very well behaved. She sat there without moving. As Black Beibei saw this from the corner of his eyes, he sighed inwardly. Indeed, everything had its nemesis. Even someone as monstrous as White Fongfong would be restrained by others one day. Of course, this wouldn't change his attitude towards Qin Yu. How could an ordinary boy like him have the qualifications to enter the eyes of his aunt and uncle? Hee, you brat, you had best have no intentions towards White Fongfong. Otherwise you'll suffer in the future. The Jiang family siblings were a bit further away. Although the 5 of them were still in a team, it was clear that after White Fingfing's poisonous tongue, they couldn't help but feel some ill feelings towards her. Chapter 311. This shout alarmed Black Beibei and the Jiang family siblings. The 3 of them were incomparably vigilant, but as they looked around and didn't discover anything wrong, their complexions darkened. Brat, are you playing with us? Black Beibei's eyes were filled with ill intent. White Fongfong sneered. Black Beibei, if you dare to speak like that again, do you believe I won't tell my mother that you are plotting against me? Jie. Black Beibei's face stiffened, as if someone were grabbing his neck. He couldn't say a single word. That damned brat, she couldn't even say a single word before using such a powerful move. White Fongfong proudly puffed out her chest. Just as she was about to say something, she was suddenly hugged by Qin Yu and leapt backwards. At this moment, everyone's thoughts were like this. White Fongfong, what does Big Brother Baoyu want to do to me? If he really does that, what should I do? Should I not do anything and just obey him? Will he think I'm not reserved enough? Moreover, I heard that the first time is very painful. If I take a pain-relieving pill ahead of time, he won't laugh at me, right? Black Beibei, you bastard, where did your courage come from? You actually dare to hug my family's little princess in front of me? If you don't want to live, then don't drag me down with you. Jiang Wuhai, Dog Baoyu, your true face has finally been exposed. Ha ha ha, my chance to shine has finally arrived. Miss White, Wait for me to save you. Jiang Zhen. This person is quite pleasing to the eye, but I never thought he would have such a bad temper. He's so rude and unreasonable, but it's really exciting. Of course, their thoughts were all wrong, because in the next moment, the ground where White Fong Fong was suddenly shattered and over a dozen black-scaled snakes burst out. If Qin Yu's reaction had been a step slower, White Fong Fong would have already been bitten by these snakes. Undying demon snake. Black Bebe cried out. He raised his hand and threw out a bag of powder. It was unknown where he had taken it out, but it exploded in the air, scattering everywhere. Hurry up and run. Don't just stand there and wait to die. He rushed over to grab White Fong Fong, but was mercilessly rejected. The little girl tightly hugged Qin, a look of disdain on her face, as if to say that she would have died a long time ago. Black Bebe's lips twitched, but he had nothing to say. He couldn't help but admit that he had to thank Qin. Otherwise, if something really happened to his cousin, he would have died miserably. Qin Yu's complexion was heavy. Without a single word, he stomped his feet and shot forwards. The undying demon snake. This was the second time he had seen it. Back then, there was only one, and it was enough to put him in a difficult situation. Today, there were more than a dozen of them. Even though he now had combat strength comparable to a divine soul, and his strength had risen several times over, he still felt his scalp tingle. Black Bebe's eyes widened. He didn't think that even though this boy's cultivation wasn't too high, he would still be able to run so fast. He didn't have time to think about it and quickly followed after him. The group of 5 rapidly fled, the angry hisses of the undying demon snakes echoing behind them. But they clearly had some misgivings about the powder that Black Bebe had sprinkled out and didn't chase after them. Unfortunately, the 5 of them were unlucky. Before they could get far, they saw 5 mountain wolves with glistening fur. Their green eyes flashed with a heart-palpitating cruelty in the dark night. Roar! 5 mountain wolves pounced at him. Black Bebe shouted out, "Kill them! Finish them as soon as possible!" He lifted a hand and punched out, instantly erupting with a combat strength that surpassed the strength of 1,000 horses. A mountain wolf across from him was broken in half by this punch, but its powerful vitality allowed it to fall to the ground and struggle to continue attacking. The Jiang family brother and sister were well aware that 5 mountain wolves weren't anything at all. What was truly terrifying were the several dozen undying demon snakes behind them. Without hesitation, they erupted with their strongest combat strength. Jiang Wuhai stood at the front like a mountain, blocking all the attacks. As Jiang Ziyuan waved her palms, a large expanse of green divine light gushed out, and thick vines rushed over, coiling around the mountain wolves. Sharp thorns grew out of the vines and pierced into their bodies, and at this time, Black Bebe had already killed the second mountain wolf. The remaining 3 were howling in pain between the vines. The 3 of them joined forces, easily breaking through the road ahead. But at this time, the undying demon snakes had already caught up. Their hissing filled the ears, causing one's scalp to tingle. Black Bebe turned around, a pained expression on his face. He flipped his hand and took out a lantern. The flames on his fingernails danced in the dark night, seeming as if they would extinguish at any moment. With a flick of his sleeve, the palace lantern was thrown backwards. The lantern was covered in cracks amidst the cracking sounds, and then it suddenly exploded. Who, between the heavens and earth, endless spiritual strength seemed to be summoned. It crazily surged towards the exposed flame, forming a giant vortex. The flame was like a black hole, crazily swallowing the spiritual strength of the heavens and earth. It rapidly expanded until it turned into a figure of fire. Its face was blurry and it couldn't be seen clearly, but this figure emitted a heaven-shaking annihilation aura. The flame figure lifted its hands, and the annihilation aura became even richer. Black Bebe turned and raced away. Hurry and run! Without needing him to say anything, Qin Yu's pupils shrank. The moment the flame figure lifted its hands, he grabbed White Fong Fong and ran far away. Several breaths of time later, there was a loud explosion from behind him. Then there was a raging shock wave. For several miles, everything was flattened and erased like sand. Qin Yu stuffily coughed. His body sank down, as if he were carrying an entire mountain on his back. He took advantage of the momentum and rolled away, withstanding most of the impact. Black Bebe was distressed. He crawled up from the ground, gnashing his teeth as he roared, "The South Shy Nation officials, those damned idiots!" There were over a dozen undying demon snakes, and they didn't even discover us. Jiang Wuhai and Jiang Ziyuan were also pale, a lingering fear in their hearts. Luckily, Brother Black had a great killing summoning tool in his hands that was able to refine and kill off all the undying demon snakes. Otherwise, even if they weren't weak, it would have been hard for them to escape death. This sort of great killing summoning tool was extremely difficult to create, and each one was incomparably precious. For them to use it here for no reason at all, it was no wonder that Brother Black was so enraged. Such a terrifying aura spread through the dark night, enough to frighten away all monster beasts that had opened their spiritual wisdom. But things didn't progress like this. Qin Yu grabbed onto White Fong Fong and said, "We're in trouble." In the darkness of the night, a terrifying aura was still reverberating in the air. Cold, cruel eyes slowly appeared in the surrounding darkness. There were so many of them that there were probably hundreds of them. Among them, there were a few particularly large black shadows that emitted a heart-palpitating aura. In such a situation, there was no chance to escape even if they wanted to. Black Bebe sucked in a breath of cold air. His handsome face couldn't help but twitch. Damn it, just what was going on? Where did so many monster beasts come from? Now wasn't the time to worry about face. Black Bebe took out his handphone, a stunned expression on his face. "No signal, there's actually no signal. Fuck, are you kidding me? You're a satellite handphone, big brother." He shook it several times and determined that it didn't work. Then his eyes narrowed and his complexion became even uglier. It was impossible for the South Shy Nation to be lazing around while sweeping through the wilderness. If so, then the massive number of monster beasts that appeared was extremely suspicious. Moreover, the satellite handphone actually didn't have the least bit of signal. Unless his luck was so bad that he stepped into a chaotic magnetic field, there was only one possibility. Someone had secretly tampered with it. "Everyone, check your bodies. Do you have anything on you?" Qin Yu naturally didn't have any problems. The Jiang family siblings also didn't discover anything on their bodies. Black Bebe's complexion turned ugly. "I don't have anything on me either." Everyone's eyes fell on White Fong Fong. This girl's eyes widened. "What are you looking at? Do you think someone as smart as me would be schemed against by others? I don't have anything on me." Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He lifted a hand and pointed at an exquisite gemstone phoenix, hairpin on her head. "You didn't seem to have this yesterday." Black Bebe's expression turned cold. "Cousin, where did you get this from?" White Fong Fong hesitated. "Yesterday on the side of the road, I saw that it was very beautiful, and I liked it, so I bought it. But I don't know the person who sold it to me. He wouldn't harm me, right?" "Give it to me." Black Bebe received the phoenix hairpin and carefully looked at it. Then he used some strength in his fingers and crushed the largest gemstone. A light, fishy smell immediately wafted out. "Ah!" White Fong Fong cried out in alarm. Black Bebe sniffed twice, and his complexion became even uglier. Mystic beast fodder medicine. Jiang Wuhai and Jiang Ziyuan's pupils shrank, shock filling their faces. "Brother Black, are you sure you saw correctly?" "How could they dare?" Black Bebe clenched his teeth. "How could I not recognize Cleansing Temple's mystic beast fodder medicine? I never thought they would play such a big game. It seems I've underestimated them in the past." He looked up, his eyes faintly red. "Cousin, let's ask for help. Even if we cannot escape death today, we must send news back so that my family Uncle and Auntie can take revenge for us." White Fong Fong paled. This little girl had been arrogant and willful since she was a child, resulting in her current temperament. She had never experienced any dangers, much less a life or death calamity. However, due to her status and the upbringing she received since she was a child, she barely managed to maintain her calm. She took out a jade ring from her storage ring that was engraved with countless tiny lines and threw it to the ground. Pa! The ring shattered and a golden curtain of light appeared, covering White Fong Fong within. At the same time, a blood-red light shot into the skies with a shrill cry, vanishing from sight in the blink of an eye. Black Bei squeezed out a smile. "I forgot that this treasure that Auntie gave you has extremely powerful defensive abilities. Then, cousin can rest assured. Fong Fong, you stay inside. No matter what happens, you're not allowed to come out. Perhaps it can protect you until Auntie comes to rescue you." He turned around, his expression heavy. He cupped his hands together and said, "Without accident, the three of you have been implicated by me and my cousin. If you don't die today, I will make sure to compensate you. Now, I ask that the three of you temporarily put down your grudges and join forces with me. Perhaps we might be able to carve out a path to survival." This fellow, in this life or death crisis, was truly impressive. At the very least, his calm composure was admirable. The Jiang family siblings took a deep breath and slowly nodded. It was impossible to say that they didn't have any resentment in their hearts. But with things having come to this point, it was useless to say anything. They could only grit their teeth and risk their lives. White Fong Fong hid in the golden curtain of light. She suddenly screamed, "No, I cannot let you die." She bit down on her fingertip and touched the golden curtain of light. It was unknown what happened, but her complexion rapidly paled. The golden curtain of light suddenly expanded, covering all five of them. Black Bei was enraged. "White Fong Fong, stop. God's blessing might be able to protect you alone, but if it includes all of us, we won't be able to survive." He lifted a hand and pointed. "Look clearly. There are several hundred monster beasts outside. You can't protect everyone. Hurry up and take back the protection of God." White Fong Fong bit her lips. "I won't. Stay with me. Father and Mother love me the most. Once they receive the news, they will hurry over." Chapter 312. Before White Fing Fing's smile could fade, she was knocked unconscious by a palm strike. Black Bei bit his fingertip and controlled the protection of God to shrink until it covered her body. Then he carefully placed her on the ground. He stood up and looked around. "I know that my actions will cause the three of you to be dissatisfied, but my cousin's status is not something that you or I can compare with. If she dies, no matter what the reason is, you and I can only be buried with her. And as long as she lives, even if we die today, we can still take revenge." Black Bei fell silent. He swept his eyes over the approaching monster beasts and bitterly smiled. "In truth, I also don't want to die, but today is just—" He shook his head. He placed the mystic beast fodder medicine on White Fing Fing's body. This was the most direct evidence, so he naturally had to keep it. He took a deep breath and said, "Everyone, let's fight to the death." The many monster beasts that had been attracted by the mystic beast fodder medicine didn't immediately attack because they were afraid of each other. But when Black Bei placed the mystic beast fodder medicine into the protection of God enchantment and isolated its aura, the monster beasts immediately began to riot. Low and deep roars filled the air, their brutality soaring into the heavens. The Jiang family brother and sister had bleak complexions. They knew it would be impossible for them to survive today, but it was impossible for them to force Black Bei to use the protection of God to protect them. Otherwise, the entire Jiang family would have to withstand the terrifying suppression of the Great Desolate's white family. It seemed that their only choice was to risk their lives in a desperate battle and fight for that slim chance of survival. The three of them revealed bitter expressions. Their eyes filled with despair and then gradually turned to madness. Since they were doomed to die, then they would do their best to drag these monster beasts down with them to the yellow springs. Between life and death, one would reveal their weakness and fear. To continue living was the strongest instinct and will of any living being. Thus, whether it was Black Bebe or White Fong Fong, the qualities they displayed left Chinyu in awe. This was because he didn't know whether or not he would be able to do the same if he were in a similar situation. As for the Jiang family brother and sister, they were extremely intelligent people. Even though they knew they were about to die, they still maintained their rationality and the overall situation. Even if they held grudges in their hearts, it was still commendable. These 4 people were all so outstanding. If they died here, that would be too much of a pity. Qin Yu turned his head and glanced at the unconscious White Fong Fong. As he thought about how this girl had subconsciously wanted to save everyone just now, he smiled. He stepped forwards, his voice calm. "All of you stay here and guard White Fong Fong." Black Bebe and the Jiang family siblings were startled. Before they could understand the meaning of these words, their mouths fell open in the next moment, incomparably shocked expressions on their faces. Bang! With a dull thumping sound, the ground suddenly exploded. Cracks spread out all around the crater. Qin Yu's figure was like a bolt of lightning as he bolted into the rampaging monster beast horde. He raised his hand, and divine light erupted from his fingers. 5 swords of the 5 elements appeared, spinning around the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to form a dazzling vortex. Bang! Blood-red flames drilled out from Qin Yu's body, blazing around him. His speed instantly rose by 10 times, and he turned into a bolt of blood-red lightning that shuttled through the monster beasts. The great black bear of Crow Plains, with its thick hide and astonishing defense, was sent flying. A horrifying wound tore open on its chest, and blood spurted out. It fell to the ground and twitched a few times. It had been killed in an instant. On the other side was a wild ape that tried to launch a sneak attack. It wielded a huge black staff, and as it slammed it down, the air exploded and the ground quaked. A huge crater opened up, and several of the weaker demon beasts were killed on the spot. But the wild ape's target wasn't here. It vigilantly leapt backwards. In the next moment, a bolt of blood-red lightning shot out, and its giant head shot into the skies. The 8-legged, black-furred spider screeched like invisible nails that ruthlessly pierced into its brain. At the same time, it spat out a massive amount of pale yellow venom from its poison sac. Several mountain wolves were accidentally contaminated by the venom. They howled in pain as they fell to the ground. As they struggled, their fur began to lose its luster at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then their flesh and blood began to rot, turning into pus that flowed to the ground and corroded it. Countless black holes appeared in the ground. But in the next moment, this terrifying night demon spider froze in place. Its abdomen had been split open, and all sorts of organs mixed with undigested food fell to the ground. Several hundred monster beasts, some of them powerful existences with combat strength at the divine soul realm, were unable to resist the blood-red lightning at all. As the monster beasts howled in pain, fear began to grow within them. The greed and desire in their hearts seemed to be poured over them by a bucket of cold water. There were already some weak monster beasts that fled the battlefield and retreated into the distance. They wanted to leave, but they couldn't help but look towards where White Fong Fong was. Although that smell had already vanished, they knew that it was still there. They hesitated, unwilling to leave. Bang! He lifted a hand and cut down a monster beast that was shaped like a giant crocodile. Then he drew back. His face was covered in blood-red flames, but at this time it was pale white. He activated the blood escape art and erupted with his complete cultivation. For a short period of time, he could erupt with an astonishing combat strength. But the consumption of energy was similarly astonishing. Massive swathes of the ground collapsed. Cracks crisscrossed the ground, and monster beast corpses fell to the ground. Blood flowed out, pooling into ground. This scene was like an Azura hell, filled with monstrous killing intent. The monster beast horde had already dispersed. Most of them were watching the situation from afar. Only 5 monster beasts remained here, their cruel eyes locked onto Chinyu, their chilling, intent cold. At this time, those that could still maintain their courage and fighting spirit were naturally powerhouses amongst monster beasts. The 5 monster beasts in front of them all had strength comparable to Divine Soul. Even if they were only at the early Divine Soul realm, their strength was still terrifying. Qin Yu's black robes were torn apart. If it weren't for the powerful defensive capabilities of the demon god armor, his entire shoulder would have been smashed to pieces. And the one who did this was one of the apes. It was a giant ape that was 30 feet tall. There was a vertical line of blood between its eyebrows that distinguished it from the wild apes of the vast expanse. Its eyes flashed with the light of wisdom, and from time to time, it would flash with a cunning and cruel light. Suddenly, the ape reared its head back and roared. It pounded its chest with both hands, creating loud thumping sounds that reverberated in the air. The surrounding 4 monster beasts revealed hesitation. But as the ape roared again, awe filled their eyes, and they all roared in unison. Qin Yu's pupils shrank. Be careful, that is the blood-eye beheading ape. It wants to borrow the strength of the 4 monster beasts to activate its life's supernatural ability, the beheading bloodlight. Do not let it hit you. Black Bebe loudly warned, his complexion incomparably tense. At this time, the 4 monster beasts had already approached the ape. They roared out loud, and billowing monster energy erupted from their bodies. The ape roared, and a suction force spread out from its body, sucking in all of the monster energy. Then, the blood-red line between its eyebrows slowly opened, scarlet red, as if a 10,000-mile sea of blood had opened up. An endless aura of slaughter and annihilation erupted from within. The 4 monster beasts shivered, fear in their eyes. It was clear they dreaded this ape's life's supernatural ability. The ape's eyes locked onto Chinyu. It bared its fangs and sneered. Then, a blood-red light burst out from its blood-red eyes. Its speed was faster than lightning. In the blink of an eye, it had already arrived in front of Chinyu. Black Bebe roared out in unwillingness. He was originally shocked that he had misjudged Chinyu, but he immediately thought that the stronger Chinyu was, the more likely they would survive. But just as he saw a glimmer of light, this hope of survival was mercilessly crushed to pieces. The blood-eye beheading ape had a divine soul realm cultivation upon reaching adulthood. In particular, it had an innate blood-red eye between its eyebrows that contained a transcendent might. In the rumors, it was said that it even contained the power of laws. Once struck, even a divine soul realm master would instantly perish. Although Chinyu had displayed an extremely powerful combat strength, facing the beheading bloodlight, he still didn't have any chance of survival. Moreover, beneath the beheading bloodlight, even the protection of God wouldn't be able to protect White Fong Fong. Black Bebe clenched his fists, his nails sinking into his flesh and blood dripping down his palms. But at this time, Chinyu suddenly moved. Of course, this wasn't quite right, because when the blood-red eye between the demon ape's eyebrows was about to open, Chinyu had already moved. It was just that Black Bebe and the others were completely drawn in by the beheading bloodlight, so they didn't notice this. Thus, it gave the illusion that Chinyu had suddenly lifted his hand and then pointed out a finger just as the beheading bloodlight was about to fall. Deep in Black Bebe's eyes, a brilliant light erupted, but in the blink of an eye it vanished. Although fellow Taoist Bayu's reaction was fast, beneath the beheading bloodlight, all supernatural abilities and techniques were meaningless. The only exception was if one could surpass a certain limit and reach the boundary of controlling the rules. But how is that possible? Controlling the rules was a boundary that only Blue Sea Realm Supreme elders could touch upon. Even if fellow Taoist Baoyu had heaven-shaking methods, It was impossible for him to accomplish this. A finger fell, nearly touching the beheading bloodlight. Even so, he could still feel the extreme coldness transmitted out from the bloodlight that penetrated deep into his soul. The blood drained from his face and his body stiffened, as if he had fallen into an icy lake. In the next moment, strong winds rose up in the void. With a loud rumble, it was impossible to see what was happening above. But as the boundless strength fell down, one could still feel the terrifying strength contained within. Thus, the air instantly froze, trapping the beheading bloodlight within. The phantom of a finger appeared from Qin, used fingertip and touched the frozen air. Kacha! The frozen air shattered. The beheading bloodlight, trapped within, also shattered into countless pieces, tumbling about and dissipating. The sneer on the blood eye beheading ape's face froze. Its eyes widened with disbelief, and then in the next moment they turned into endless fear. Roar! It roared in pain. The blood-red eye between its eyebrows seemed to be pierced by an invisible arrow. Blood flowed out, and its massive body staggered before it fell to the ground, dead. The backlash from its life's supernatural ability, the beheading bloodlight, had actually taken the life of the blood-eye beheading ape. The other 4 monster beasts that had stimulated their monster energy to activate their blood-eyed eyes also roared out loud, beads of blood seeping out from their eyes. With the blood-eye beheading ape in front of them, the majority of the backlash was offset, so their injuries weren't too serious. But the strength that Qin Yu had displayed had truly frightened them. The beheading bloodlight was the beheading bloodlight that could easily kill a divine soul cultivator. But it had been broken by a single finger and even caused a terrifying backlash. In their eyes, Qin Yu had become the incarnation of the most terrifying existence in the world. Just a single glance was enough to easily kill them. How could they care about the mystic beast fodder medicine? It was already good enough that they could keep their lives. The 4 divine soul monster beasts cried out in pain and turned to flee, panicked like stray dogs. They didn't have any of their previous momentum. In the surrounding area, the monster beasts that were still waiting for a chance to leave were stunned. Then, their chrysanthemums tightened and they turned to flee with their tails between their legs. What nonsense! 5 divine soul bosses had joined forces, and even one of them had been easily killed. If they continued to stay, what difference was there from sending themselves to their deaths? Chapter 3:13. Like this it ended. Black Bebe blinked his eyes again and again. He finally determined that he wasn't dreaming. He took a deep breath and looked at Qin Yu's back, awe in his eyes. To be able to destroy the beheading bloodlight and even cause a backlash, that common-looking finger just now contained a monstrous might. He couldn't help but think about it. But no matter what the truth was, there was one thing he could be sure of. This fellow Taoist Baoyu was unfathomably deep and had an incomparably terrifying background. It was impossible for such an existence to have any improper thoughts towards White Feng Feng. It could be seen that he had been completely wrong from the start. Thinking back to all the taunts and naked hostility he had received, Black Bebe broke out in a cold sweat. He hurriedly bowed. Junior Black Bebe of the great desolate lake greets Senior Baoyu. I didn't know Senior status before, so I ask that Senior forgive me for offending you. Jiang Wuhai and Jiang Ziyuan paled in fright. They hurriedly bowed as well. The background of the great desolate lake might be useful, but their Jiang family might not have the face to do so. That figure didn't respond. He only quietly stood there, as if he were standing at the center of the world. An invisible pressure spread out like a tide, completely submerging Black Bebe and the others. The fear in their hearts deepened and a cold sweat soaked through their robes. But they didn't dare to move at all. The air was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. This is bad, this is bad. Senior must have some complaints. If it were them and they were offended by several juniors, they would likely be angry. If Senior Baoyu hadn't revealed his cultivation, then that would be fine. But now that he had displayed such heaven-shaking might, He naturally had to protect the dignity of a powerhouse. Perhaps they would suffer a bit today. Luckily, since Senior Bayou had saved them, he shouldn't make things too difficult for them. But even though they thought this, the three of them were still like ants on a hot pan, anxious to the extreme. Time slowly passed. As Black Bebe and the Jiang family siblings were losing hope, they finally heard a long exhale in their ears. This sound broke through the deathly stillness of the world, pulling the three of them back from the brink of collapse. They gasped for breath, the fear in their eyes even deeper. Senior Bayou was truly formidable. Just his silence had caused them to experience a great life or death calamity. I only hope that Senior can be magnanimous and not punish me too heavily. On the other side, a trace of red finally appeared on Qin Yu's pale face. The aura of the beheading bloodlight that invaded his body slowly dissipated, and he regained control of his body. The power of the blood-eye/ape's innate divine ability was so terrifying. Just a bit of its aura was already so terrifying. Luckily, for some unknown reason, the boundless blue finger had awakened in the sea region. It possessed an extremely terrifying characteristic that could destroy any supernatural ability of his opponent. Otherwise, with Qin Yu's current strength, it would have been impossible for him to resist the beheading bloodlight. This special characteristic of the boundless blue finger could be described as perishing together with the enemy. Of course, this perishing together with the enemy definitely had some sort of limit. When the opponent's strength exceeded this limit, the special characteristic of the boundless blue finger would be broken. However, even something as terrifying as the Tao severing divine light could destroy it. It seemed that the limits of the boundless blue finger were far higher than what Qin Yu expected. In the past, when he was lying on the blue rock, he had obtained the demon blood and formed the demon body. He had also obtained the inheritance of the boundless blue 3 fingers. Now, the boundless blue finger had revealed a strength that far surpassed its original strength. Then, could the second blue spirit finger also contain a formidable strength that Qin Yu had never touched upon? Even to this day, Qin Yu didn't have the qualifications to control the third blue sea finger. It seemed that he had underestimated the power of the 3 blue fingers. Perhaps in the future, it would become an extremely fierce trump card in his hands. Qin Yu took a deep breath and suppressed these thoughts. He turned around, and what he saw was an extremely respectful group of 3 people filled with anxiety and trepidation. What he didn't know was that after he regained his ability to move, he had brought a great deal of torment to these 3 people. If it weren't for them forcefully enduring it, they would have already started crying. "You all!" Black Bebe fell to his knees, a pained expression on his face. This junior had eyes but failed to see. I didn't know Senior Baoyu's true appearance. If you want to beat me or kill me, then Senior can do as you please. I won't dare to utter a single word of complaint. There was nothing he could do. He had just said that he was someone from the great desolate lake. It was clear that to Senior Baoyu, this wasn't any pressure at all. In fact, he might even be dissatisfied. Otherwise, why would Senior Baoyu disregard his status and torment them like this? Since this road couldn't be taken, then all that was left was to lower himself and admit his wrongs on his own initiative. He hoped that this would appease Senior Baoyu's anger. Of course, the remorseful Brother Black had already prayed to all the gods and Buddhas in his heart, hoping that they would bless him and allow him to escape this calamity. "Senior Baoyu, this junior was only joking around. Please don't take it so seriously." The Jiang family brother and sister's hearts shook. From Black Bebe's actions, they thoroughly understood just how fierce this Senior Baoyu was. This was the great desolate lake. If he didn't give them any face at all, then they certainly didn't have the qualifications to care about face. The brother and sister quickly fell to their knees, begging for mercy in fear and trepidation. "Senior, please don't lower yourself to the level of juniors like us." Qin Yu frowned. His thoughts raced as he thought of the same reason. It seemed that they had been frightened by the fact that he had destroyed the beheading bloodlight and killed the blood-eye beheading ape. But this was also good. Qin Yu lightly said, I hope that you won't casually leak out what happened today. Black Bei was overjoyed. Did this mean that he didn't plan on punishing them anymore? Senior, rest assured that the three of us will absolutely not tell anyone about what happened today. As he spoke, he quickly winked at the Jiang family brother and sister. Idiots! If they didn't hurry up and climb up, then if Senior Bayu changed his mind, they wouldn't even have a place to cry. Junior and Junior swear that if we reveal anything that involves Senior, we will suffer the suffering of the 3 calamities and 10 tribulations and fall into samsara for all eternity. Qin Yu's lips curved up in a faint smile. Seeing these 3 fellows being so honest at this time, he was a bit pleased. Since he had frightened them, and they didn't dare to speak too much, then it was time to leave. Otherwise, who knew when they would see through the truth and there would be more complications? The danger should have passed. You can walk the rest of the road by yourselves. Qin Yu turned and left. With several flickers, he vanished from sight. His voice echoed out from afar. Remember what you promised me. Farewell, Senior Baoyu. Black Bei and the other 2 let out long breaths of relief. They slowly stood up and glanced at each other. They could all see the joy in each other's hearts. Luckily, Senior Baoyu didn't bother arguing with them. Otherwise, if they wanted to pass today, they would have to shed off several layers of skin. Brother Jiang, Miss Jiang, you have all heard Senior Baoyu's words. I will remind you once more that you cannot rely on any luck. Otherwise, a great calamity will befall you in the future. The Jiang family brother and sister's hearts shook. As they saw the deep meaning in his eyes, they quickly nodded. Black Bei picked up White Feng. As he looked at her unconscious appearance, he couldn't help but ruefully smile. Indeed, what his aunt said was right. No matter how good his talent was, he still couldn't compare to Feng. This girl's luck was simply heaven-defying. She was actually able to casually grab onto a fierce existence like Senior Baoyu. Fortunately, this was the case. Otherwise, they would have already become food in the bellies of monster beasts. Let's go. Not long after the 3 of them left, Qin Yu's figure appeared in the darkness of night, a self-deprecating smile on his face. Indeed, acting all high and mighty is a waste of time. I almost forgot about this. He quickly searched through the monster beast corpses. Soon his eyes brightened. With a flick of his sleeves, the 5-element metal magic sword appeared and drilled into the monster beast's mouth. With a loud crackling sound, the magic sword flew out with over 100 teeth wrapped around it. Qin Yu lifted a hand and a ball of water condensed in the void. He cleaned all the monster beast teeth and carefully placed them in his storage ring. After a while, he found another monster beast corpse that could be refined into stormflow. But this time, what he could use were its bones. The metal magic sword transformed, becoming a butcher's helper. Poochie, 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 the sound of flesh being cut was mixed with the sound of blood splashing. The number of bones was far greater than the number of teeth. After successfully refining it, the might of storm flow could be imagined. As Qin Yu cleaned the bones, he chuckled. Moments later, after searching through all the corpses, there was only the blood-eye beheading ape left. As a divine soul realm monster beast, it also had amazing talent and supernatural powers. If it could be used, Qin Yu inspected it and revealed a disappointed expression. As he thought, the dream of refining storm flow at the divine soul level wasn't too realistic. What a useless fellow. What a waste of time growing up. Qin Yu curled his lips. Just as he was about to leave, his eyes flashed and he reached out a hand. Puff! The point between the blood-eye beheading ape's eyebrows shattered and a blood-red bead appeared. This was its 3rd blood eye. After the blood-eye beheading ape died, it actually became like this. This was a bit unexpected. Holding it in his hand, it felt hard and cool, like some kind of jade. But there was a crack on its smooth surface. It was likely caused by the backlash. Thinking for a moment, Qin Yu probed the bead with his divine sense. In the next moment, his complexion changed, and he severed the connection with this divine sense without hesitation. His face paled. As his divine sense probed the bead, it was like entering an incomparably terrifying sea of blood. Monstrous killing intent tumbled about, as if it could tear one's soul to pieces. If it weren't for Qin Yu's prompt decision, he feared he would have suffered the impact of the blood sea. At the very least, his soul would have been greatly damaged. Qin Yu took a deep breath and suppressed the shaking in his heart. Then he held the bead formed from the blood eye, and a smile gradually appeared on his face. This object could be considered a pleasant surprise. Because of the cracks on its surface, it was only maintaining a fragile stability. Once it was shattered by an outside impact, the annihilating strength contained within would erupt. If he were to suddenly shoot out this blood eye when fighting with others, the effects would surely be excellent. Or it could be said that using it as a life-saving method wasn't bad either. Even a peak divine soul realm powerhouse wouldn't fare well against this blood eye. If that was the case, then it would be more valuable than a set of storm flow magical treasures. Qin Yu laughed several times and carefully put away the blood eye. Then he took a step forward and held away. After a long time, a man and a woman walked out from the darkness, shivering. They looked at the scene of the Azura field on the ground. In particular, there were several monster beast corpses that had been skinned and torn apart. Their originally pale faces turned even whiter, and endless fear filled their eyes. "SSSS, brother. LLLLL." The woman stammered, nearly unable to speak. Her tears and snot mixed together, and she looked extremely distressed. Chapter 314. At the base of the mountain, in a wild jungle, a large area had been cleared out. Although it had been buried, the smell of blood still lingered in the air. This was the location that the South Shine Nation had chosen for the competition. It had just been sorted out several days ago. According to the South Shine Nation's usual style, the competition area would be built atop countless monster beast corpses. In other words, there were at least several thousand or even tens of thousands of monster beast corpses buried beneath this land. No wonder he always felt that the air here was filled with a cold and gloomy aura and resentment. This was likely caused by the monster beast corpses buried underground. It was said that the South Shine Nation did this to display their ruthless determination to strike down the monster beasts and also to increase the difficulty of the alchemy competition. If one couldn't even resist this infernal energy, then they weren't worthy of being called a true alchemist. But no matter what the goal was, this in itself was an astonishing act. Only the strength of an entire nation could gather such a powerful strength and accomplish this in a short period of time. Qin Yu was now several miles away from this open space. Beneath his feet was an ancient tree that had grown for countless years. The tree was over 1,000 feet tall, and its trunk was like a giant pillar. It was thick enough for dozens of people to wrap their arms around it. It's not good to use it here. My current appearance is like this. Qin Yu whispered to himself. He lifted his hand, and with a flash of light, a mask as thin as a cicada's wing appeared in his palm. It wriggled on his face, seeming to melt into his flesh and blood. Then, what appeared in front of him was a strange youth with dark skin. He jumped down from the tree. After several breaths of time, Qin Yu changed into a plain robe and flew straight towards the competition field. When he registered, he wore a black robe. When he passed through the wilderness, he used his own appearance. And when he entered the competition, he used a mask to change into another face. It wasn't that Qin Yu was deliberately mystifying others, but that he had no choice but to be cautious. The name Ning Qin had already offended many people, and the most important was Philosophy Watch. Qin Yu didn't want to taint himself with troubles that he wouldn't be able to rid of in the future. As for Qin Yu's appearance, he didn't believe that this grand alchemy competition that would sweep through the entire South Shine Nation wouldn't be broadcasted live. The Yu family was located in the southern Overwatch Pass. If they discovered Qin Yu, he didn't need to be a genius to know what the consequences would be. In the end, it was all because his cultivation was too weak. Otherwise, why would he be so cautious? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was hiding his head but showing his tail. With a self-deprecating smile, Qin Yu's feet touched the ground and he truly entered the range of the martial field. In the next moment, his complexion changed. In his ears, the roars of countless monster beasts filled with pain, resentment, longing, and unwillingness seemed to ring out. It was like an invisible vortex that wanted to drag his soul into it. Qin Yu's mind shook and he immediately sobered up. A dignified expression crossed his face. This was the demonic aura emitted by the monster beasts that were killed. It was truly fierce. He praised inwardly. But he didn't know just how much of a shock he had caused to the South Shine Nation officials who were waiting here. For ordinary cultivators, the first time they stepped into the midst of the fiendish demonic beasts, their minds would definitely be seized. To be able to sober up within 10 breaths of time was already a commendable feat. Most of them would have to stand there in a daze for a long time, and some might even shout and roar in fright. Compared to this, one could feel just how amazing Qin Yu's performance was. Fellow Daoist, if you are here to participate in the competition, please show me your hourglass. A South Shine Nation official said, his tone much warmer. Such a character was bound to be extraordinary in the future. They naturally didn't dare to put on the airs of an official. Qin Yu took out the hourglass. After carefully inspecting it, he found there weren't any problems. He placed it on the competition field and was warmly reminded the competition will officially begin after a day of rest. Fellow Daoist can choose a place to stay and adapt to the monster beast slaughter energy as soon as possible so that you won't be affected as much as possible during the alchemy process. After thanking them, Qin Yu stepped inside, leaving behind several cultivators who had just woken up, dumbfounded. Why were they so nice to him? It wasn't like this just now. Facing these questioning gazes, the South Shine Nation officials proudly chose to ignore them. If an idiot couldn't even understand this, then he was destined to have no achievements in his life. He certainly wasn't worth their attention. This wilderness trial seems to be very simple. I haven't even done anything, yet I've already arrived at the competition field. Who said it wasn't? It feels like the difficulty has dropped by several levels compared to what I heard. There's no challenge at all. Haha, I've only been hurrying along and I haven't even seen half a shadow of a monster beast. It's simply unbelievably smooth. Could it be that the South Shine Nation officials have relaxed the conditions for participating? With so many people rushing in at once, I fear it will be lively once the competition officially begins. Voices mixed with excitement, joy, and all sorts of other emotions constantly spread into Qin Yu's ears, causing him to think of White Fong Fong and the others. Although he didn't know what the mystic beast fodder medicine was, its effects were obvious. After the South Shine Nation cleared out the wilderness, the vast majority of monster beasts would likely be drawn over to surround them. It was natural for the remaining participating cultivators to easily pass through. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He suddenly realized something. The land of divinity and demons actually had this sort of pill that could attract monster beasts on a large scale. As expected, the alchemy path was broad and profound. His previous understanding of alchemy had been far too shallow. As he was thinking, he heard several conversations in his ears. His complexion changed, and he quickened his steps, avoiding the several people walking towards him from behind. White Fong Fong stopped. She sniffed several times, a puzzled expression on her face. "Cousin, what is it?" Black Bebe asked. White Fong Fong sniffed again. "I think I can smell Big Brother Bayou's scent. But there are too many people here, and I can't find him." As she spoke, she fiercely glared at him. "Black Bebe, tell me the truth. Where did my Big Brother Bayou go? Did you drive him away?" Black Bebe forced a smile. "Little aunt, how many times have I explained this? It was fellow Taoist Baoyu who left on his own. He said he had some matters to deal with. If you don't believe me, you can ask them. I really didn't drive him away." What nonsense. Even if he had 9 lives, he wouldn't dare to do that. Brother Black, truly didn't drive away Senior Baoyu. This was certainly true. Thus, Jiang Wuhai and Jiang Ziyuan nodded repeatedly, not feeling any psychological burden at all. White Feng Feng revealed a suspicious expression. Humph, I'll believe you for now. But if I ever find out that you lied to me in the future, Black Bebe, you're dead. Black Bebe had a helpless expression. All right. If I lied to you, then you can punish me however you want. Is that fine? He quickly changed the topic. Today, we're here to find trouble with others. So let's not waste any more time. Cousin, don't you want revenge? This move was indeed useful. White Feng Feng clenched her teeth. Let's go, we're going to find them. Qin Yu's forehead was covered in a cold sweat. This little girl's nose was truly extraordinary. Even with so many people around, she was still able to smell them. Luckily, he had reacted a step faster. Otherwise, things would have been troublesome. Just as he was preparing to leave, he never thought that this little girl, White Fingfing's luck would be so good. She actually bumped into the person she wanted to take revenge on. With deep hatred and bitterness, there was nothing left for both sides to say, so they directly erupted. Like this, it wasn't good for him to turn around and leave. Moreover, Qin Yu also wanted to know just who it was that wanted to kill this little girl, White Feng Feng. Qin Yu chose a more remote location. He stood in the crowd and looked towards the scene. Black Bebe's pitiful appearance from before had been swept away. His handsome face was as cold as ice, and his eyes flashed with killing intent. Zhao Jiutian, Lord Black really underestimated you in the past. I never thought you would dare to play with such a large hand. Across from him, a youth with long and narrow eyes revealed a relaxed expression as he saw that White Feng Feng and the others were safe and sound. Then he sneered, Black Bebe, don't slander me. What does it have to do with me that you've caused a disaster? Black Bebe sneered. It seems I overestimated you. You actually dared to do something like this, and yet you don't dare to admit it. He reached out a hand. Cousin, take out the evidence. White Fingfing's face was cold and her eyes were indifferent. There wasn't the slightest bit of craziness from before. Instead, every movement she made exuded a noble and inviolable feeling. She lifted a hand and took out the mystic beast fodder medicine she had found in the hairpin. A faint fishy smell immediately wafted out. Zhao Jiutian's pupils violently shrank. Black Bebe coldly said, Look carefully. Is this the unique mystic beast fodder medicine of your cleansing temple? If I don't look for you, who else should I look for? I wasn't the one who did this. Zhao Jiutian was startled and angered. When he heard everyone mention that the wilderness smelting trial was incomparably easy, he had already felt a sense of unease. But he didn't expect things to be so serious. That's right. He had indeed ordered people to play some small tricks. But his goal was to trap White Feng Feng and the others so that they wouldn't be able to arrive at the martial field within a day and thus lose the qualifications to participate. But he absolutely didn't, nor did he dare to use the mystic beast fodder medicine. This was no longer stopping them, but naked murder. Zhao Jiutian's back dripped with a cold sweat. Even though he had an honored status, if these people in front of him really died, his fate wouldn't be any better. This bastard, just what was going on. This was simply trying to kill him. He couldn't admit it. Even if he died, he couldn't admit it. Otherwise, he would be in deep trouble. Black Bebe sneered again and again. Only the direct descendants of Cleansing Temple have the qualifications to use the mystic beast fodder medicine. And you have a grudge with us, as well as a sufficient motive to do so. And now you say that you didn't do it? Fine. I will give you a chance to clarify yourself. In the wilderness, the White family has a secret technique called soul searching. It can determine whether a cultivator's words are true or false, and I just happen to be skilled in this secret technique. If you have a clear conscience, then let me give it a try. Zhao Jiutian flatly refused. Black Bebe, don't be too insolent. I am a direct descendant of Cleansing Temple. How can I allow you to casually slander me? That's right, the mystic beast fodder medicine is indeed something that only my direct descendants can use. But over the years, there has always been a great deal of it that has spread outside. Just the mystic beast fodder medicine alone cannot be blamed on me. Just say, do you dare to let me give it a try? Humph. If any random dog or cat asked me to cooperate with them, where would I find the time to do so? Black Bay, if you have evidence, then take it out. If you don't, then I won't accompany you any further. At this time a light voice sounded out. My family's miss has encountered a dangerous situation. Before we find out what happened, you cannot leave. It was unknown when a middle-aged man had appeared beside White Fong Fong. But as his words fell into the ears of those around him, they were like a giant boulder falling into a lake, setting off endless waves. Uncle Ming. White Fong Fong bowed, her young face cold. I'll have to trouble you with this matter. Chapter 315. Zhao Jiutian felt his scalp tingle and his face stiffened. Although he knew that this matter would set off a great uproar, he didn't think it would alarm a master of this level. Ming Siyuan was one of the top masters of the Great Desolate Lake. His status was only inferior to that couple that controlled everything. Since he had personally come here, it was clear he wouldn't give up so easily. Black Bei quickly bowed, his voice incomparably respectful, and his eyes filled with awe and worship. Black Bei, you were careless and caused the mist to encounter danger. After the competition ends, go to Wild Temple and receive your punishment. Yes, revered Ming. Ming Siyuan looked up, his eyes not falling on Zhao Jiutian. He lightly said, Fellow Taoist Yuan, since you've arrived, why haven't you shown yourself? Revered Ming, it's been several decades since we last met, and your cultivation has surpassed the past. This brother here admires you. Yuan Tiangang stepped through the void. Although each step he took seemed silent, it actually caused ripples to appear in the void. Ming Siyuan's expression didn't change. I also admire fellow Taoist Yuan's cultivation. But today, your cleansing temple must give me an explanation. In that instant, the void froze. It was like an invisible mountain was pressing down. All cultivators found it difficult to even breathe. In particular, Zhao Jiutian and the other cleansing temple cultivators paled. Their mouths were wide open in panic, but they couldn't utter a single sound. Yuan Tiangang laughed. Revered Ming is still as straightforward as ever. Brother, I won't speak any nonsense. This matter wasn't done by us. He landed beside Zhao Jiutian as if he had stepped into a frozen lake. An invisible impact instantly shattered the frozen void. This was an evenly matched battle. Of the many cultivators present, only a few were able to understand what was happening. Qin Yu was one of them. His complexion was dignified and his heart was filled with praise. To change the rules of the world with a single gesture and borrow the strength of the world for one's own use. The Blue Sea realm was truly worthy of being called a terrifying existence that could turn the Blue Sea into a mulberry field with a single thought. It was truly terrifying. That girl White Fingfing's accident had actually drawn in such a supermaster. His background was likely far more astonishing than he had imagined. Luckily, after he had put on an act, he had left without hesitation. Otherwise, in front of this revered Ming, he feared he would have been seen through with a single glance. Ming Siyuan's eyelids drooped. Yes or no, words have no basis. Yuan Tiangong's smile faded. When he smiled, he gave people a feeling of unparalleled heroism. At this time his face was taut, and suddenly he gave birth to endless ruthlessness. Revered Ming, can't my brother's words be used as evidence? Ming Siyuan lightly said, If it were me, then fellow Taoist Yuan's words would be sufficient evidence. But today, I represent the Great Desolate Lake's mistress. If fellow Taoist Yuan really wants to take responsibility for this matter, I'm afraid that my mistress will personally ask you for confirmation in the future. There was a trace of fear in Yuan Tiangong's eyes. After a little silence, he smiled again. Since Lord Ming is so insistent, I will naturally give you face. Jiu Tian, tell me honestly, did you do it? Jiu Tian clenched his teeth and bowed. Revered Yuan, there is indeed a subordinate cultivator who proposed to me to borrow the strength of the wild monster beasts to prevent White Fong Fong and the others from participating in the competition. But I have already refused this request. Yuan Tiangang was expressionless. Who suggested it to you? Where is that person? Jiu Tian respectfully said, It was Zhao Fuyue. He was injured and is currently recuperating in his residence. He rejoiced inwardly. Luckily, he had made preparations beforehand. Otherwise, he really would have been in trouble today. Yuan Tiangang lightly said, Bring him here. Ming Siyuan said, Perhaps we should go. Yuan Tiangang smiled. Good. Then let's do as revered Ming says. Jiu Tian, personally, led the way. Countless cultivators followed closely behind. This was a confrontation between Blue Sea Realm Supreme Elders. It was rare to see such a lively scene. The South Shine Nation officials seemed to have already been warned, so they did intervene and allowed the great, desolate lake and cleansing temple to do as they pleased. Zhao Fuyue's residence wasn't too far away, so they soon arrived. Jiu Tian personally knocked on the door, but there was no response. His complexion changed. He clenched his teeth and kicked the door open. There was no one inside. Jiu Tian's heart skipped a beat. Facing Yuan Tiangong's icy cold eyes, he began to sweat profusely. Impossible, he was here just now. Maybe he had something to do, and went out for the time being. A sharp light flashed in Ming Siyuan's eyes. You little thing, just where do you think you're going? He lifted a hand and grasped out. Heaven and earth's spiritual energy crazily gathered, turning into a giant hand that grabbed a cultivator that was trying to sneak away in the distance and instantly pulled him in front of him. Jiu Tian, is this the subordinate you spoke of? Jiu Tian paled. Although he knew things were bad, he didn't dare to deny it. This wasn't a secret, and he could find out as long as he investigated. He braced himself and nodded. That's right, it's him. He clenched his teeth and roared. Zhao Fuyue, why are you running away? Could it be that you were the one who secretly harmed fellow Taoist, White Fong Fong? Zhao Fuyue's complexion was drained of blood, and his face was filled with panic. Young Master Jiu Tian, save me, save me. I was just following your orders. Now that there's a problem, you can't just ignore me. Jiu Tian's field of vision darkened, and he nearly fell to the ground. His first thought was, just who was this bastard that he dared to harm him? Shut up. What nonsense are you spouting? When did I order you to harm White Fong Fong and the others? Zhao Fuyue, think carefully before you speak. Be careful that your mouth doesn't cause trouble. Ming Siyuan swept his eyes around. Are you threatening me in front of me? Jiu Tian felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He hurriedly bowed. This junior doesn't dare. Ming Siyuan coldly snorted. Zhao Fuyue, speak. Beneath his gaze, Zhao Fuyue shivered like a sieve. I have evidence, I have evidence. He trembled and took out a handphone from his chest. He unlocked it and opened the camera app. He found the recording file and opened it. On the handphone screen, a video immediately began to play. In a dimly lit room, Jiu Tian handed a round object to a middle-aged cultivator. It wasn't clear what he said, but from the cold sneer on his face, it was clear that he wasn't speaking kindly. The video ended. Jiu Tian paled. His eyes widened, filled with disbelief. There was only one thought in his mind. How was this possible? How was this possible? A cold light flashed in White Fingfing's eyes. She lightly said, Uncle Ming, the mystic beast fodder medicine in my hand was taken from the hairpin I bought. The middle-aged cultivator in the video is the one who sold me the hairpin. Whoosh, the crowd stirred. They looked at Zhao Jiutian with eyes full of sympathy. At this point, even if he had 100 mouths, he still wouldn't have a chance to defend himself. Moreover, he couldn't blame anyone else for this. Even such a confidential matter had been recorded. If he didn't die, then he would feel sorry for his stupidity. Ming Siyuan narrowed his eyes. Fellow Taoist Yuan, what else do you have to say? Yuan Tiangang was silent for a moment. He lightly said, I will personally interrogate him. All right. Ming Siyuan let go, and Zhao Fuyue fell to the ground. But in the next moment, he stomped his feet and fled outwards. Yuan Tiangang was expressionless. He lifted a hand and pointed forwards. The void instantly froze. The surrounding cultivators subconsciously widened their eyes and secretly gave him a thumbs up. In front of a blue sea realm, he actually tried to escape. This level of intelligence was truly incredible. But at this time an accident occurred. The imprisoned Zhao Fuyue trembled and blood gushed out from his head. His eyes dimmed and lost all luster. He died. This result was unexpected. The air fell deathly silent. Then, everyone's eyes subconsciously fell on Yuan Tiangang. Silence him. Without needing to think about it, this thought directly leapt out from the depths of their hearts. Yuan Tiangong's face darkened. He lifted his hand and pulled Zhao Fuyue's corpse to his side. After probing it with his divine sense, a cold light rose in his eyes. This person's organs had been directly shattered by a formidable strength, and even his soul had been erased by some unknown strength. And he, Yuan Tiangang, just happened to have the means to accomplish this in silence. With this, there really was no way to explain it. Ming Siyuan's complexion darkened. Fellow Taoist Yuan, what do you mean? Yuan Tiangang sucked in a deep breath. Revered Ming, I cannot explain it clearly right now, but you must believe that there must be some other plot behind this. Please give me some time to clearly investigate this matter. Ming Siyuan lightly said, Fellow Taoist Yuan, I won't stop you if you want to investigate, but you must hand this junior over to me. After being pointed at, Zhao Jiutian's eyes immediately revealed endless fear. Yuan Tiangang frowned. Revered Ming, I cannot agree to this. Ming Siyuan said, Fellow Taoist Yuan is prepared to protect him at all costs. Yuan Tiangang said, I ask Revered Ming to give me some time. Ming Siyuan stepped forwards. The dignity of the great, desolate lake's young master cannot be offended by anyone. Bang! In that instant, the might of the blue sea realm swept out in all directions like a tide. The void seemed to transform into a raging sea. Heaven-shaking waves surged up and down, bursting out with 1,000,000,000,000 destructive strengths. Yuan Tiangang sighed. This isn't what I wanted. I ask Revered Ming to forgive me. His expression turned solemn. In the eyes of everyone, his figure instantly rose up like a divine mountain in the sea. No matter how monstrous the waves were, they still couldn't shake him in the least. Cries of alarm rose up from the crowd. As everyone retreated, they didn't forget to take out their handphones and excitedly open their recording apps. This was a battle between Blue Sea Realm's supreme masters. To be able to witness this with their own eyes was enough to brag about for decades. Of course, it was necessary for him to post a copy to his WeChat moments to show off to others. Qin Yu mixed in the crowd. He swept his eyes around and saw the excited crowd. He thought to himself that it was too early for them to be happy. Unless the South Shine Nation officials didn't plan on holding the competition as scheduled, it was impossible for them to allow 2 Blue Sea Realm super powerhouses to fight on the field. And sure enough, as Ming Siyuan and Yuan Tiangong's auras became increasingly strong and space trembled as if it would collapse, a figure appeared on the field without warning. Revered Ming, revered Yuan, I am overjoyed that you two came in person. But tomorrow is the competition day, so I ask that you two be magnanimous and not make things difficult for me. He wore a blue robe and a light smile hung on his face. But at this moment, no one could ignore this elegant cultivator who had suddenly intervened. At first, his aura wasn't too formidable. But, as one went a step further, they discovered that ever since he arrived, it was like a great net had appeared between the heavens and earth, trapping everyone within. Perhaps they couldn't feel the might of this net at this time, but once it tightened, no one could escape. Chapter 3:16. Ming Siyuan furrowed his eyebrows. After a moment of silence, he slowly retracted his aura. Exalted Yin, I was impetuous today, but this matter was personally ordered by my family's mistress. I will not give up. He coldly swept his eyes over Zhao Jiutian and then cupped his hands together. Young master, let's go. White Feng Feng nodded. With a taut face, she led her people away. The crowd of onlookers retreated like a tide, each one revealing a deep awe in their eyes. This little girl, when she put on airs, she really did seem like she was the real deal. Yuan Tiangang bitterly smiled. He cupped his hands together and said, Exalted Yin, I was in the wrong today. Thank you for helping me out. Yun Ilan smiled. If the two of you can stop, that is already giving me face. But, revered Yuan, you must deal with this matter as soon as possible. He nodded and stepped away, teleporting away. Yuan Tiangong's eyes turned cold. Zhao Jiutian, come with me. He didn't forget that he had taken away Zhao Fuyue's corpse and inexplicably ruined his plan. He naturally wouldn't swallow this loss in silence. The South Shan Nation had built many temporary wooden houses. Yuan Tiangang pushed open the door and walked in. Behind him, Zhao Jiutian fell to his knees, his body shivering. Yuan Tiangang didn't look at him. After sitting down, he closed his eyes in thought. After a long time, he opened his eyes and a cold light erupted several feet from them. Zhao Jiutian, I will ask you this once. Were you the one who made the mystic beast fodder medicine? Zhao Jiutian shook his head again and again. Revered Yuan, please understand. Although Jiutian isn't talented, he still has some brains. How could he try to kill White Feng Feng and the others? This must be a plot. Perhaps the great desolate lake is taking advantage of this opportunity to cause trouble for my cleansing temple. Yuan Tiangang coldly sneered. The protection of God has already appeared. The Bai family's daughter must have encountered a life or death danger. That couple from the great desolate lake would never do such a thing. He twirled his fingers, and his eyes became increasingly cold. I believe that you don't have the courage, but your stupidity makes this matter impossible to explain. Zhao Jiutian, your mistake will cause tremendous damage to the entire situation. If you can smoothly take first place in the competition, there might be a chance to turn things around. Otherwise, you don't want to know what your fate will be. Zhao Jiutian began to sweat. Revered Yuan, rest assured that this disciple will do his best. Elsewhere, everyone from the great desolate lake had already settled down. Ming Siyuan's expression was still indifferent, but there was a hint of intimacy in his eyes. Young master, you've really gone too far this time. If something goes wrong, I'm afraid the sky will collapse. Uncle Ming, aren't I fine now? Now that there were no outsiders, White Feng Feng immediately dropped her cold and lofty facade. She had a cute and innocent expression on her face. That Zhao Jiutian is too much of a bastard. He actually wanted to kill someone as beautiful and cute as me. This is unforgivable. Black Bebe's lips twitched. Of course, at this time he wouldn't retort. As for Ming Siyuan, he seemed to have long since grown accustomed to this. His expression didn't change as he said, This matter isn't necessarily the work of cleansing temple. White Feng Feng's eyes widened, a sweet and innocent expression on her face. Ming Siyuan shook his head. You don't need to worry about this matter anymore. I will investigate it myself. If there really is someone secretly inciting disharmony, then our relationship with cleansing temple. Before he finished speaking, a cold light flashed in his eyes. It was enough to explain everything. Restraining the killing intent in his heart, Ming Siyuan lightly said, You still haven't told me how you escaped from the trap of the mystic beast fodder medicine. White Fong Fong proudly stuck out her chest. It was absolutely my big brother Bayou's contribution. Ming Siyuan frowned. His eyes fell on Black Bebe. Black Bebe groaned inwardly. Senior Bayou's warning was still vivid in his mind. So how could he dare to speak of it? But if he didn't, then with revered Ming's temper, he would definitely skin him alive. This was truly tragic. Feeling revered Ming's eyes turn increasingly cold, Black Bebe braced himself and said, reporting to revered Ming, "What Fong Fong said is correct. The reason we were able to survive was because Senior Bayou rescued us. But before Senior Bayou left, he told us not to tell anyone about his matters." White Fingfing's eyes widened. She suddenly cheered. "I knew that my big brother Bayou was the strongest. He was countless times stronger than Black Bebe. Also, you hateful Black Bebe, you actually dared to lie to me. Hurry up and tell me where my big brother Bayou went." Looking at White Fong Fong baring her fangs and brandishing her claws, Black Bebe nearly cried. "My dear Grandaunt, could you not interfere at this time?" Ming Siyuan narrowed his eyes. "Bayou, Black Bebe, tell me everything you know." Black Bebe opened his mouth, but didn't dare to utter a single word of refusal. He could only cry and recount what happened that day. As White Fong Fong heard Chinyu display his invincible might and slaughter his way through the monster beast horde, finally using his own strength to scare away all the monster beasts, her eyes sparkled like little stars. She couldn't help but look at him with worship. Ming Siyuan revealed a dignified expression. "You're saying that he only has a nascent soul cultivation, but was able to erupt with the combat strength of his divine soul? Moreover, his supernatural power even defeated the beheading bloodlight and triggered a backlash that killed the blood-eye beheading ape?" Black Bebe nodded. "Yes." Ming Siyuan was silent for a long time. "Black Bebe, if today's matters enter my ears, do not mention them to anyone else. Do you understand? Such a serious tone could it be?" Black Bebe was startled. He nodded again and again, but his complexion paled even more and a bitter taste filled his mouth. White Fong Fong blinked her eyes. "Uncle Ming, what are you talking about?" Ming Siyuan thought for a moment. "Young master, can you tell me why you are so close to this stranger you've only met twice?" White Fong Fong bit her finger, thinking for a long time. I don't know. At first glance, I thought that Big Brother Bayou was a very, very good person, and I wanted to be good friends with him. Then, the more I interacted with him, the more I felt that Big Brother Bayou was far too good. Compared to a certain cousin of mine, he was at least 100,000 times better. Brother Black, who had been implicated once more, had tears streaming down his face. Ming Siyuan let out a long breath. If Miss has such a reaction, then it should be correct. After thinking for a moment, he decided to tell them about this matter so that these two little fellows wouldn't inadvertently speak of it and provoke a great deal of trouble. "Young master, if I'm not wrong, this fellow Taoist Bayou should be a reincarnated cultivator. He has awakened his consciousness before entering the divine soul realm. Unless he had some heaven-defying good fortune, he should have stepped into samsara with his consciousness. The possibility of the former is nearly negligible, so the greatest possibility is that this fellow Taoist Bayou must have been a peak character in his previous life." He didn't speak too clearly, but with White Fong Fong and Black Bebe's status, they had the qualifications to come into contact with some extremely secretive matters of the world. For instance, reincarnation and samsara. The truth was that every life form had a past life. It was just that in samsara, all soul marks would be washed away and the memories of their past life would turn to smoke. But if one's cultivation in their past life was high enough, then when a cultivator stepped into the divine soul realm and opened up their soul space, there was a chance they could awaken a portion of their past life's incomplete memories. These memories were often the greatest obsessions of their past life. It was unknown how good or bad their effects were. Some could cause a person's personality to change, and some could allow them to obtain the inheritance of their memories and become incomparably powerful. And in samsara, there was also an extremely special and rare existence. That was the reincarnation of consciousness. This sort of reincarnation could even choose their own reincarnated body. This involved the power of samsara and the rules of the great Tao. The difficulty was nearly unimaginable. Of course, once one succeeded, the harvests would be astonishing. This was because this sort of reincarnated person would have the complete memories of their past life from the day they were reborn, and they would also have an outstanding mortal body that they had chosen ahead of time. In an extremely short period of time, they could grow once more, even reaching a boundary that was even more formidable than their previous life. This sort of samsara was called the reincarnation of a deva, and those that had the qualifications to be called a deva were at least at the calamity immortal realm. Cultivation defied the heavens and changed one's destiny, rising step by step, becoming increasingly powerful. After nascent soul came the divine soul, and after divine soul came the blue sea controlling the rules. And after the blue sea came the calamity immortal realm. Those at this boundary could be called immortals. They stood at the final hurdle of ascending to the heavenly Tao. If they didn't perish after withstanding the 3 calamities and 10 tribulations, they could step onto the transcendent great Tao. In the land of divinity and demons, the transcendent great Tao only appeared in legends. Even the emperor-level existences that controlled a great empire and borrowed the destiny of the nation to resist the heavenly Tao were only calamity immortals. In other words, the calamity immortal realm was the highest peak existence in the land of divinity and demons. Black Bebe had a dazed expression. Although he had suspected this before, the impact of hearing it from revered Ming's mouth was on a completely different level. Calamity immortal. Calamity immortal. These 2 words were like endless bolts of heavenly thunder. They rumbled in his mind, tearing apart all his thoughts. Even breathing became incomparably difficult. This little girl, White Fong Fong, was also stunned. But in a short period of time, she regained her composure. Then her eyes brightened and she screamed, "Calamity immortal! My big brother Bayu is a calamity immortal! Ha ha ha! My big brother Bayu is a calamity immortal! With this, who dares to bully me? From now on, I, White Fong Fong, will have the qualifications to walk sideways." In a trance, Black Bebe was awakened by this laughter. His lips twitched, and he subconsciously wanted to taunt her. But as he thought of the way Senior Bayu had looked at White Fong Fong before he left, his heart skipped a beat, and he didn't dare to say anything. Ming Siuan said in a low voice, "That's enough. This is only my guess, and I can't be sure right now. The reason I am telling you all this is to have you remember not to speak of this matter to anyone else." Black Bebe, the 2 juniors of the Jiang family, personally warned them and have them forget about this matter. He paused for a moment, his voice becoming increasingly low. A person that is suspected to be the reincarnation of a calamity immortal will attract countless greedy eyes. Even if I don't say it, you should all be aware of this. If news of this were to leak out, the consequences would be inconceivable. There was also something he didn't say. If a great uproar were to arise, then with the abilities of a reincarnated calamity immortal, it shouldn't be difficult for him to escape. But he would inevitably bear a grudge against the great desolate lake. To be remembered by such a character, even the powerful great desolate lake would find it hard to escape destruction. White Fong Fong nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Then she suddenly thought of something. She turned and viciously said, "Surname Black, just a little bit of wine and you've lost control of your mouth. From now on, you better stop drinking. If you dare to say a single word about it, I will make sure you never see the light of day again."